Go? My goodness, I got some issues. Good afternoon. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Legislative Task Force on Child Protection. I'm Representative Dave Pinto, the co-chair of the task force. We're going to hear from my incoming co-chair, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, in just a moment. So glad to be with everyone. For members and members of the public, I want to emphasize that the agenda and meeting materials are online. If folks are having trouble getting that, maybe we'll make sure we get are able to express the website, but hopefully folks are able to find that. But I've had people at various points talk about wanting to see the materials, and just want to emphasize that they are on the website for the task force. Members and members of the public, you'll see we have quite a full agenda, which reflects really the focus of the meeting, which is that there was a lot of progress made in this legislative session relating to child protection in Minnesota. And what I wanted to do as chair for this meeting was to pause, make sure that members of the task force and more broadly that members of the public have an understanding as to what passed, and to hear about some of the implementation of what passed. And we also, in addition, have two other topics that are kind of particularly timely, hearing about an effort that's happening right now to address foster care licensing for relatives, which is something that is of particular interest, I know, to Chair Champion, to myself, and to others as well, to make sure that if kids cannot be in their parents' care, we want to do all that we can to have them be in the care of other family members, and so there's an effort on that. And you'll see right towards the bottom of the agenda is a study that has just come out on Minnesota's, on a policy change in Minnesota. And just because of the timeliness of that coming out just last month, we thought it would be important to have that presented as well. So that's the overall agenda. When we have a new task force member, Senator May Quaid, she's not able to join us right now. When she does join, I'm going to ask her to just share, introduce herself and share her interest in this work. And then also, before we begin, I'm going to turn things to Senator Champion, my co-chair. I'm so happy to be doing this work along with Mr. Chair.
So thank you there, Mr. Chair. I sincerely appreciate you. I'm looking forward to working with you. It is not as if we haven't worked together in the past, so thank you for work and your contribution around the African American Family Preservation Act and just other work that you've done. So thank you so very much. I, as you know, represent Senate District 59, and so I'm excited to be here. Also with me, joining us is Alexis Varner, who is sitting to my left. She is my legislative assistant, and so now that I'm co-chair, she has the awesome responsibility of keeping me in line in this task force. Also, you will hear from Senator Erin May Quaid, who will be with us. I think she's going to be with us virtually, and then the other members that have already been here, Senator Kroon, and then also Senator Hoffman and others. So thank you so much. I also want to always thank Senator Mitchell for her work as co-chair with you, Representative Pinto. She's not with us anymore in this capacity, but I always think it's important to be respectful of those who have done some work even before I got here. So last but certainly not least, I'm excited to hear about the updates to the child welfare legislation, and thank you for putting together such a robust and important agenda. So I appreciate you and all that you do. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chair Champion. I do want to acknowledge that in addition, we're joined in the room by Representative Patty Mueller and Representative Jess Hansen, and then on Zoom by Senator Andrew Matthews, Senator Karen Housley, and Representative Ron Kresha. I know that others will be joining us in and out as the afternoon goes along. And you'll see we do have quite a packed agenda. I just want to see if members have any questions regarding the agenda at all. And we'll keep an eye on my committee administrator, Coley Colburn, will keep an eye out. And Senator Hoffman.
Senator Housley just announced they can't hear anything.
Oh, thank you, Senator Hoffman. So we will get to work on that. Apologies to friends watching on Zoom, and we will try to get you connected. Okay, so with that then, we are going to start with an overview of the funding and laws that were enacted this session. And you'll note the remainder of the agenda will address different pieces of that, but I've asked our nonpartisan staff from House Research and House Fiscal to just put it all together and take a look at the funding and laws. So I'll begin with Mr. Berg, I think is going to start. Yes, either way? Well, okay, Ms. Sunderman, please introduce yourself and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Sarah Sunderman from the House Research Department. And as the chair said, I'll be going through changes in 2024 session law in the areas of child protection and child welfare.
And actually, Ms. Sunderman, hold on one second. We're working on, I guess make sure to keep your phone away from the mic I'm being asked to have you do. And then, and maybe the computer as well. And then we're just going to see if we can get our Zoom members able to hear. I'm just going to look and see. I'm also being reminded to ask folks to get as close to the mic as possible. I do want to make sure that our members joining via Zoom are able to hear. So we'll just have 1 second. Still working on that. So sorry, everybody, but we want to make sure we have full participation. Okay. Sounds like we're checking with IT. Maybe I'll ask, I think what we're going to do is I think you all have very informative slides, so I think I'll ask staff to do is maybe you can put a note in the chat to those members that they can at least be keeping an eye on what's being presented visually, and hopefully we'll catch them up, but I do want to get going. So, Ms. Sunderman, back to you. Sorry for the interruption there. Thanks.
To give you kind of a roadmap to this presentation, the relevant laws we'll be covering are from Chapter 115, which was the Children and Families and Education Bill. It's Article 12, which is Child Protection and Welfare. Article 17, the Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act changes. Article 18, Children and Families Policy, and Article 22, which Mr. Berg will go over, Children and Families Appropriations. Then it will cover Chapter 117, the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act, commonly referred to as MAFPA or AFPA. And Chapter 123, Article 4, Sections 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. These are the changes to the age of delinquency. And finally, Chapter 80, this bill was the Department of Children, Youth, and Families statutory changes. Starting with Chapter 115, Article 12, we had the Child Critical Incident Review changes, and these are all effective July 1st, 2025. These sections restructured the process for reviewing child critical incidents, which are defined as fatalities and near fatalities. They modified child mortality review panel membership and added an executive director and functions for the executive director. These sections moved several requirements in current statute to Chapter 260E, which is reporting of the maltreatment of minors. And there were changes to the sections moved, but some of them were moved sort of more in whole. So a lot of the data requirements here were just moved and recodified in Chapter 260E, except for there was an explicit provision of immunity for certain parties and allowing a critical incident review to proceed during pending litigation or active investigations, which was a change from existing statute. And finally, these sections require an annual report from the Child Mortality Review Panel. And we also repealed old language and parts of the former process. The new process is laid out in this slide. First, the local welfare agency reports a critical incident to DCYF and the panel's executive director within 3 business days of the maltreatment determination being made. Then the panel conducts a joint review with the local review team for critical incidents that meet statutory criteria, and the statute lays out the criteria for joint review. Any critical incidents that were not subject to joint review by the panel and the local welfare agency, the local review team would review that. Then within this process, DCYF conducts additional fact gathering upon request of the panel, and I think also the local welfare agency, and then compiles a summary report for the requester. And when the review is completed, the report is due within 120 days of initiating the review. However, that report may be delayed for additional fact gathering, depending on the circumstances. And also, the panel may make recommendations to any state or local agency, branch of government, or system partner to improve child safety and well-being.
And members, I'll maybe note if you've got clarifying questions along the way, I think that's appropriate and fine. And otherwise, of course, we'll have time for questions once the whole section is done as well. But there's a lot. This is very dense material, so if you have clarifying questions, please speak up. Please continue, Ms. Sunderman.
Still in Chapter 115, Article 12, we're moving to the changes to the treatment of supplemental security income, retirement, survivors and disability insurance, and other survivor benefits. To give a little background, when a child is in foster care, the financially responsible agency, which is typically the county, may apply to be the representative payee and receive the child's SSI, RSDI, and other federal benefits on their behalf to pay for the care of the child. These changes require the financially responsible agency applying to be the payee for the child's benefits to provide written notice to listed parties, and then also specifies that the agency must only use the child's benefits to pay for the care of that child. It prohibits commingling of benefits, the benefits received for a child with any other funds. Pause for 1 second. Okay. Requires the agency to keep accounting records for any benefits received, and requires each agency receiving funds on behalf of a child to submit an annual report to the commissioner, and then requires the commissioner to submit an annual report to the legislature.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question on
Yeah.
on the notice provision in Article 12. You said that the payee must give written notice to listed parties. What context are the listed parties? Who are they?
Ms. Sunderman.
Mr. Chair and members, the list is in the statute, and it's to the child if the child is over age 13, the child's parent, guardian, or custodian, the guardian ad litem, the legally responsible agency, if different than the financially responsible agency, and the counsel appointed for the child. And I'd also like to say for all of these, this is a somewhat high-level overview of very complicated material. So there's an act summary for each of these provisions on the House Research website for significantly more detail on each of these things.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Cronin, yeah, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment on that, and I don't know if it's in the new laws that were enacted or not, but if the child is over 18, they must get notice. But it seems like sometimes a child under 18 is represented by an attorney, oftentimes a volunteer attorney.
Actually, Senator Cronin, can I ask you, can you get a little closer to the mic and maybe
Sure.
pivot up a little bit? Just a little hard for me to hear you. Thanks. Yeah.
How's that? There we go. Oftentimes a child under the age of 18 has an attorney, often a volunteer attorney. And so do you happen to know if that attorney then would get the notice required under this provision?
Ms. Sunderman?
Mr. Chair and members, yes. The child would receive the notice if the child is over 13 years old, and then the counsel appointed for the child would also receive the notice of benefits being received on the child's behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cronin. Please continue.
Moving to federal compliance changes, these were, I believe, brought to the chairs and to the legislature by DHS. It's Article 12, Sections 4 through 10 and 12 through 26. Some of these sections are effective July 1 of this year, and some of them are effective July 1 of next year. Overall, these changes expand the terminology of sex trafficking to include labor and human trafficking throughout relevant statutes, which is why there are a lot of sections. And these changes also modify and add responsible social services agency requirements and procedures for reporting, reviewing, and documenting cases of missing and trafficked children, and that is primarily found in Section 10. Still in Article 12. We are moving to the Supreme Court Council on Child Protection. This section invites the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to establish a Supreme Court Council on Child Protection to develop a comprehensive blueprint to improve Minnesota's child protection system and prevent unnecessary entry of children and families into the system. It requires meetings to begin no later than September 15th of this year. It also lists members and appointing authorities for each member of the Supreme Court Council, specifies that the council should address all aspects of the child protection system, and it also lists the activities the council must undertake when developing the blueprint. It requires an initial progress report to the governor, chief justice, and the legislature by July 15th, 2025, and requires a final report January 15th, 2026, detailing the council's comprehensive blueprint, and the council expires upon the submission of the final report. Some remaining provisions in Article 12 related to child protection. There's a requirement for DCYF to evaluate child maltreatment reporting processes and systems in other states, and to develop recommendations on implementing a statewide maltreatment reporting system in Minnesota. And there's a report required on that by June 1st of 2025. There's also a section requiring the commissioner to ensure that the comprehensive child welfare information system being developed can meet listed tracking, information sharing, and comprehensive data reporting requirements. And it also establishes the supporting relative caregiver grants, which Mr. Berg will go into a little bit more when he discusses the funding. Moving next to Chapter 115, Article 17. This article contains the Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act, otherwise known as MIFPA, changes. These changes build on the extensive changes made in 2023 to codify the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act, otherwise known as ICWA, in Minnesota statutes. It makes a significant number of technical and conforming changes. It also modifies, clarifies, and adds definitions in Section 260.755 and in Chapter 260C. Adds additional requirements for the inquiry into American Indian heritage or tribal lineage, and adds and modifies notice requirements. Requires courts to allow for remote appearances in child placement proceedings under MIFPA. Clarifies certain provisions related to active efforts. It requires deferral to tribal determinations of exclusive tribal jurisdiction for cases involving Indian children. And it modifies appointment of counsel provisions and tribal participation in court proceedings. And for this specifically, the act summary is informative if you're interested in any of the provisions in particular.
And Ms. Sunderman, I'll just note, Senator Housley had asked that the summaries for these bills that you referenced be provided to task force members later when we're able to, and we'll try to remind, I know you're in the middle of presenting now, we'll try to remind you of that after the task force meeting and get those out to task force members. So please continue.
And as I said, they're also available on the House Research website.
Perfect,
Act
yeah.
Summaries section.
So we'll work
Yep.
with staff to gather those together and get those out, members. Please continue.
Okay. Moving to Chapter 115, Article 18. This article contains child welfare policy provisions. A significant number of these were from the DHS policy bills. There were a lot of changes in North Star adoptive, kinship, and foster assistance, particularly allowing for continued kinship assistance payments to assign successor relative custodians, and adding youth throughout the North Star chapter to allow payments to be made directly to foster youth between ages 18 and 21 who are placed in supervised independent living settings. There were changes in Chapter 260C to child placement proceedings, mostly related to placement with a parent under protective supervision. This article also removed non-payment of support without good cause from the list of conditions for termination of parental rights, and requires the responsible social services agency to provide a 1 to 2 page summary of the out-of-home placement plan to a child's parent or guardian before the parent or guardian signs the out-of-home placement plan, and that is effective March 1st, 2025. This article also established supportive services and rights for parents with disabilities. It prohibits the court from denying adoptive placement due to the prospective parent's disability and provides for supportive services for those parents. It also specifies that a child is not to be considered without proper parental care based solely on the disability of the parent, child, or parent, guardian, or custodian. It prohibits filing a CHIPS petition based on a parent's disability, and again, similar to the adoption provisions, provides for supportive services for those parents. And provides that a parent should not be denied parenting time solely based on the parent's disability.
And Mr. Chair, with that, I'll go very briefly through the appropriations, mostly related to the items we
And
just talked about.
And Mr. Berg, just please introduce yourself.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I'm Doug Berg. I'm fiscal analyst for the House for Human Services and Children and Families items. And beginning on slide 12, the largest single appropriation in this area was $10.162 million for the Social Services Information System, SSIS, modernization project. You're going to hear some more about that later in the agenda. Just for background there, the 23 legislature put out $2 million, I believe it was, for a study and report on modernization of this system, which is critical to many parts of the human services system, including child protection. The department has previously estimated the full cost of replacing this system between $80 and $100 million, the state share of that being about half, so between $40 and $50 million. That was the estimate. This is $10 million to start that project. The 25 legislature will have to deal with the final costs. The relative caregiver grant item, there's $550,000 appropriated in fiscal 25 only for a new grant program to assist relative caregivers. The SSI RSDI reporting tool and report that Ms. Sunderman discussed has an appropriation of $200,000 in fiscal 25 and $100,000 ongoing in the 26-27 biennium. There is a $200,000 appropriation in fiscal 25 only for the child maltreatment reporting study. The changes to MIFPA result in IT changes that have a cost of $10,000 in fiscal 25 and ongoing costs of $4,000 a biennium in fiscal 26, 27 and beyond. And the child critical incident review changes have an appropriation of $405,000 for fiscal 25 and ongoing costs of $938,000 a biennium.
And Mr. Berg, before we flip the slides, Senator Hoffman, I think was going to ask about a fiscal note for something. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Berg, thank you. Do you know, it's two-point question. Was there a full fiscal note done on the SSIS modernization, A, and then B, is that a shared cost along agencies, or is that under one bucket?
Mr. Berg.
Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman, the answer to your first question is no, there is not a formal fiscal note on this. This is an ongoing process. The $2 million, I believe it was, dollar appropriation in 2023 session to start the planning process and a report, that's underway now. I think you probably just got a interim or a preliminary report from the agency on that. They're still at the stage of trying to identify what needs to be done and what will be the appropriate thing. The agency put out a rough estimate, but not a fiscal note, that saying that the full cost of replacement would be 80 to 100 million. Again, that's shared with the federal government. And I'm not sure how to answer your question about shared between agencies. I think I'm not sure how to answer that question.
All right, Senator Hoffman.
No, Mr. Chair, no, that got to it. It's just, I'm looking at the full amount. And the assumption is that it's going to come out of the HHS somewhere in Human Services or Health and Human Services bucket. But there are some other agencies involved in that. That's a whole different conversation. No, he answered the question exactly what I needed to hear. So
Good stuff. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Mr. Berg, so we're moving on to your next slide, I think.
All right, Mr. Chair, members, moving on to the next slide. These are the remaining items. These are still in Chapter 115, Article 22. The Supreme Court Council on Child Protection, that is a $1 million appropriation in fiscal '25 only. And then there are a variety, the chairman wanted to highlight the appropriations for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which aren't specifically child protection related, but that department now has jurisdiction over child protection items. There was $3.3 million in new appropriations to that department for fiscal '25, and a new $14.016 million in the '26-27 biennium. The next two are backfill items at the residual agencies, if that's the way to describe it. 1.2 million in fiscal '25 at DHS and 4.8 million in fiscal '26-27 and beyond. And at MDE, the Department of Education, there's 173,000 in '25 and 690,000 a biennium ongoing. Again, those are general operating appropriations, not specific to child protection. And then finally, in Chapter 117 that I think Ms. Sunderman is going to discuss after this, there is the African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. It has appropriations of $8.4 million in fiscal '25 and ongoing appropriations of $8.4 million for the '26-27 biennium. And, Mr. Chair, that's the overview of the appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. So, Ms. Sunderman, back to you.
Mr. Chair and members, moving on to slide 14. We're starting to discuss Chapter 117, the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. This act establishes responsible social services agency and court requirements for African American and other disproportionately represented children in the child protection system. Now, it's structured to begin as a phase-in program for Hennepin and Ramsey counties, starting January 1st, 2025, and then the entire act becomes effective statewide, January 1st, 2027, unless otherwise stated in the provisions of the act. We'll start with the details of the phase-in program. It's established, as I said, for Hennepin and Ramsey counties, January 1, 2025. The commissioner may approve other counties' participation upon request. This might also be funding dependent. The counties provide case review reports beginning January 1, 2026. The commissioner reports on the phase-in program outcomes to the legislature. There's also a working group established to provide guidance and oversight of the phase-in program and to provide interim legislative reports and statewide implementation and a statewide implementation plan for the act. And the appropriation, it's $5 million appropriated for grants to Hennepin and Ramsey counties to implement the phase-in program, and it's $22.5 million each. So for this in particular, the act summary provides a lot more detail because this act does a great deal. So to keep it fairly high level, the act requires active efforts rather than just reasonable efforts, the development of a safety plan, and active efforts to locate relatives and ensure family visitation for African American and disproportionately represented children. It also defines several terms for purposes of the act, which I did not include here. It requires the court to find by clear and convincing evidence to order out-of-home placement for an African American or disproportionately represented child that the child will be at risk of serious emotional or physical damage if remaining at home. It establishes emergency removal procedures, declares a preference for transfer of permanent legal and physical custody versus termination of parental rights for these children. It also limits the court's ability to terminate parental rights to a smaller number of conditions. It also provides some exceptions to the new TPR limitations for these children in certain circumstances. It also modifies the reestablishment of parental rights requirements for African American or disproportionately represented children. Continuing on, it prohibits certain conduct by child protection employees, requires annual case reviews by responsible social services agencies, and then requires remediation plans for agencies whose reviews show child welfare disparities. Provides for cultural competency training, outlines duties and report requirements for the African American Child Wellbeing Advisory Council and African American Child Wellbeing Unit, both of which have already been established. And it establishes the African American and disproportionately represented family preservation primary support grants, which are part of the funding Mr. Berg discussed. It also requires the commissioner to develop, maintain, and administer a publicly available online compliance and feedback portal related to compliance with the Act, and to publish guidance on best practices related to these children in foster care. Moving to slide 18. This slide covers Chapter 123, Article 4, the changes of raising the age of delinquency. These changes are effective August 1st, 2026, and they raise the age of delinquent child and juvenile petty offender from 10 years old to 13 years old, and instead requires a juvenile who commits a delinquent act or petty offense before age 13 to be treated as a child in need of protection or services. So there would be a CHIPS petition instead of a juvenile delinquency petition.
And Ms. Sunderman, in the interest of time, I think I'm inclined to have you skip slide 19. We can maybe have that up for folks. And all these slides, of course, are online in the hands of and available in print to folks in the room here. I will have one clarifying question, which maybe I'll just ask now, and then members will see if anybody has anything. It's to Mr. Berg. Back just on the spending slides. I guess that's 12 and 13. I forget the name that we ended with, but the kinship care grants to support kinship care. I didn't see that, but maybe I'm just missing that. But if you could just.
Mr. Chair,
Berg.
on that, they're the second item, which.
Oh, the relative
referred under
caregiver,
the
I'm sorry.
Relative caregiver grants.
There you go. I remember we came up with there was a different title, and that's what it was, relative caregiver. So again, funding to encourage and support people who are going to provide care for kids and their own families, which was really important. Okay, so members, any clarifying questions? Almost all of this will be discussed, I think, in upcoming sections. So we may be done with this section. Not seeing any, and we'll look online. I believe that the members, by the way, I don't know if we fixed the sound on the Zoom, but I think we've encouraged those members to be watching on YouTube, and I think that they can. They can hear now? Oh, we're thinking. We're not. Okay. Okay, so we're going to try to fix that sound, but I do believe the members who are joining via Zoom have been able to be listening on YouTube. Okay, not seeing any hands. Thank you so much, Ms. Sunderman, Mr. Berg. Really appreciate it. Members, our next item on the agenda is the Supreme Court Counsel, and simply a comment about that. I want to point members' attention to a letter from Justice Ann McCaig that is in the packet. As Ms. Sunderman said, the Supreme Court was asked to do an 18-month study that, if you kind of saw that slide that she showed, it's a pretty extensive thing that we asked the court to do. Let's see if I can bring up the language real quick here. To develop a comprehensive blueprint to improve the child protection system and prevent unnecessary entry of children and families into the system. So you'll want to take a look at the letter from Justice McCaig dated yesterday, July 23rd, that describes some of the progress of that Supreme Court Counsel right now. There is, Justice McCaig was not able to join us, but offered this letter, and I would suspect that we'll hear from her at some future meeting of the task force. Moving on then to the next item, which is hearing from the Department of Human Services about the implementation of the funding laws that we just heard about. We're working on slides and on sound, so I'll invite Marvin Davis to come up. I believe that is our testifier. I think the agenda should say Department of Human Services, but we'll get you on up there. And members have asked the department to present, in particular, on some of the topics that will not be coming up later in the agenda. So you'll see that AAFPA, SSIS, age of delinquency change are topics coming up, but there are a number of other things that passed, and so we thought we'd kind of address some of those, and there is a presentation in our packet. Mr. Davis, you can, I'm not sure if you're starting or Summerfield, but whoever is, if you can introduce yourself when you're ready and proceed.
Good afternoon, members. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. You just make sure, just sort of adjust to get right in there. Yeah, I think you're good.
My name is Marvin Davis. I'm a Deputy Division Director with the Child Safety and Permanency Division at DHS. I'm here today to provide an update on implementation efforts regarding child welfare legislation that passed this last session. So the first update I have is in regards to the new process for child fatality, near fatality reviews, which is effective July 1st of next year. This legislation requires a new process be established for state and local reviews of critical incidents involving the death or near death of a child, and that existing state statute and administrative rule governing child mortality review panels and the department's current child fatality and near fatality review team be repealed. As for implementation efforts to date and next steps, we are currently working on completing position descriptions for the new positions tied to this legislation. We anticipate filling these positions in advance of the new process legislated to go into effect statewide next year. These positions will provide ongoing training, consultation, and support to mortality review panels and the local child mortality review teams. They will coordinate tracking of the joint reviews and support the department's current fatality or near fatality team. We are working with the department's Office of Continuous Improvement and other partners to build out the structure and purpose for our state child mortality review panel. We have also reached out to current state panel members to inform them of the changes, our work with the Office of Continuous Improvement, and the application process to join the state panel if they are interested in becoming a member. Next up, we have the federal cash benefits for children in foster care. As you may recall, the 2023 legislature passed a new law requiring DHS to study preserving federal cash benefits, such as supplemental security income, or SSI, and retirement survivors and disability insurance, RSDI, for children and youth in foster care. This study has been underway since then, and a legislative report will be submitted by the deadline of January 15 of next year. The report will outline the findings and recommendations. The 2024 legislature subsequently passed a law requiring counties and financial responsible agencies receiving these federal cash benefits to provide notice to various individuals and entities that explains their receipt and use of these funds. This law went into effect July 1st of this year. Additionally, the department was appropriated funding to develop a survey for counties and financially responsible agencies to use for annual reporting to the department on the number of children for whom they applied to be representative payee, the total number of children for whom they received these funds, and the total dollar amounts received. According to the provisions, this data must be reported to the department by July 1st of 2025 and every July 1st thereafter. The department will then submit a county and agency response through a legislative report by September 1 of next year and every September thereafter. In terms of implementation efforts, the department contracted with Minnesota's Management and Budget, Management Analysis and Development, or MAD, to fulfill the 2023 legislation requirements regarding the legislative report that is due next January. MAD is wrapping up their engagement work and has begun compiling their findings. The department and MAD is working on the legislative report and plan development. As for the 2024 legislation, department staff are exploring options for contracting with an entity to develop the survey tool for counties and agencies to annually report on their receipt and use of federal cash benefits on behalf of children in foster care. In terms of the notice requirements, department staff are looking into developing an optional template that agencies can use to provide the required notice to eligible youth and other individuals. Department staff will develop or draft a policy bulletin outlining the requirements and if the optional template is developed, it will be included as an attachment to the bulletin. Next up, we have the Child Maltreatment Reporting System Study that has a legislative report due June of next year. This past session, the department received funding to review child maltreatment reporting processes in other states and consult with stakeholders to develop and provide recommendations back to the legislature by June 1st of next year on whether the state should have a centralized maltreatment reporting system. In terms of our implementation efforts to date, the department is exploring options for contracting with an entity to manage this project, both a 50-state review and stakeholder consultation. We will support the contracted entity in developing a plan for engaging stakeholders, including counties, tribes, and others involved in the child protection system. Should the recommendation be to adopt a centralized reporting system, we anticipate such changes would be made as part of SSIS modernization efforts. Next up, we have the supporting relative caregiver grants, the one-time funds we just heard about. That was effective July of this year. Related to this proposal, the department was appropriated one-time funding for community-based nonprofit organizations to provide culturally competent supports and resource connections to relative caregivers caring for their relatives' children who are part of communities overrepresented in Minnesota's child welfare system. These funds are required to be spent during the same fiscal year in which they were made available. In terms of our implementation efforts, because these grants need to be spent in the same fiscal year in which they were made available, it's really not possible to timely develop a new request for proposals specific to these grant funds. The RFP process takes several months to complete, and by the time agencies would enter into contracts with the department, they would only have a few months to expend the funds. Fortunately, the department will be able to wrap these one-time only funds into the recently completed request for proposals for the Kinship Navigator program. The department staff will monitor contracted agencies' use of these time-limited grant funds to ensure that they are used in the manner specified in the 2024 legislation. Next, we have the out-of-home placement plan summary, which is effective March 1st of next year. In terms of this legislation, by March 1st of next year, the department must develop and make available a document that counties can use to provide a brief 1 to 2 page summary that outlines in plain language the requirements parents need to meet to be reunified with their child or children in foster care. This document must also summarize the content of their child's out-of-home placement plan. In terms of our implementation efforts, department staff began developing this form following the Office of Legislative Auditor's report on child protection, removals, and reunification. The OLA report recommended a brief 1 to 2 page summary for parents to receive to better understand what they need to do to be reunified with their children. The department has received helpful feedback from county agency staff on the original 1 to 2 page summary document. Department staff have been working to revise the layout and the contents. We are working to continue revising the summary document, and we have incorporated requirements from the 2024 legislation. We are also working to develop a plan for engagement of community members, especially parents who have gone through the process.
And Mr. Davis, we're going to, that's quite the slide, by the way. It's an impressive slide, too. What we're going to do is, I think folks are still, we're going to try to have our members who are joining us be able to be on the Zoom as opposed to listening on YouTube. And so members, we're going to take, and members of the public, we're going to take a pause for a few minutes. When we come back, I just want to say I'll be asking for questions, or I'll have a few clarifying questions, maybe others will as well, about what we just heard, because then we've got some other really big topics coming up. And so we are going to go in recess for a few minutes while we adjust and fix the sound. So the committee, the task force is in recess. convening the task force on child protection. Apologies to folks in the room, and apologies to those who are joining us on Zoom and remotely that for the technical problems, but now we're back on. And Mr. Davis had just wrapped up slide 2, and I actually wanted to pause here. Folks will see the remaining slides relate to some of the topics that'll be coming up later, and so I just kind of wanted to stop and see if folks have questions about the items that were just reviewed. One thing I wanted to highlight, I'll go to Senator Hoffman 1 second. You'll note, members, that the presentation was by Department of Human Services. The PowerPoint is Department of Children, Youth, and Families. We're in the middle of sort of transitioning between the two agencies. I'm not sure if Ms. Sommerfeld or Mr. Davis could possibly just describe for us about where child protection work and the transition between agencies, just so task force members are aware of that. And then I'll go to Senator Hoffman. But Ms. Sommerfeld, if you could do that. I'm not sure if you are the right person. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Sommerfeld. I'm the Government Relations Director for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And I apologize, I was multitasking, trying to figure out how to move the slide.
Oh, apologies.
Which is not moving. So could you repeat the question?
Sure.
From the beginning?
Yeah,
Thank you.
apologies. Just wanting to have task force members be oriented about kind of where the work that we oversee is as between DHS and DCYF, and kind of when that transition will be occurring and what pieces, just so we've got that kind of fixed in our minds. Ms. Sommerfeld.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, DCYF started on July 1st of this year. I was one of the first people to move to the new agency along with the rest of an executive team. The government relations team moved from Children and Family Services over on July 3rd. On July 15th, early education programs coming from the Department of Education moved over. And then on July 31st, the CFS, the Children and Family Services programs, including child protection, will move over to the agency.
Okay.
I will say that feels a little, in how we do our day-to-day work, we were just talking about this. I still work with Marvin and all of our people as if we are part of the same agency, because we have work still that must go on. And so
Right.
that line is more about staffing in my world as opposed to how we work together.
Okay, so right at the moment, still in DHS. In a week, it'll technically be DCYF, but of course, continue to work together. So, okay, thank you so much. So we'll go to Senator Hoffman and then other questions. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for clarifying that. Ms. Sommerfeld, there's the task force, or the report that you just submitted based on the task force, and I had it up, but then I must feel like Groundhog Day, you know, the Delta thing. I just feel like that's happening right here with my computer right now. But so I'm going to just visually get you there. There were some points within your report that showed some need for increases, some deficiencies that the folks that you had in the list of people you had, county worker, you had county representation, tribal representation, everybody in there. One of the things that jumped up at me was the issue that how are we assuring on the accessibility side of it, the accessibility issue specifically around title, would be just the ADA compliance itself. And I'm reminded 10 years ago, there was a young woman, African-American woman, who came in front of Rena Moran and I in this conversation, and she had a learning disability. Didn't understand what she was signing. The county workers just had her sign this piece of paper. She unknowingly gave away her 3 children and a termination of parental rights. That is not left my lived experience even to this day. And that's why when we passed the African American Preservation Act, that was a driving force about why that was deeply needed, right? But still, there's an intersectionality piece that just continually begs this conversation. I noticed in your stakeholders, not one of those stakeholders represented either Disability Law Center or somebody that has that lived experience like that young woman that I talk about, that Rena Moran and I sat and listened to when we did the 3-hour hearing 10 years ago. And so I just want to make sure that how are you assuring that people understand what's going on with the system? That's the first one. And then the second one really is how are you assuring that we have those intersectional access points embedded within your conversation going forward?
And Ms. Sommerfeld.
Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman, some of that question, I'll be honest with you, I think is a little outside of my scope right now as the Government Relations Director, so I will have some conversations back. I'm not deeply involved in the implementation process or the engagement piece that you brought up. So I'll go back and talk to folks from the implementation office and make sure they're aware of that.
Can you adjust your microphone over a little bit, Ms. Sommerfeld? Just want to make sure we can hear you well. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Usually I'm very loud. So, so I will go back and talk to folks about that. When it comes to how we're making sure things are accessible, are you talking about forms and our website?
Yeah.
Maybe, Senator Hoffman, yeah.
And Mr. Chair, yeah,
Clarify.
this tells me that the system, when you talk about, for example, I'm going to go back, University of Minnesota did a study, 89% more likely to receive services. People with disabilities are 89% more likely to receive services, and they're twice as likely to be placed in foster care than anybody else across the spectrum. And that is embedded when you add other components categorical to it, everything just goes through the roof, right? And here's a prime example. It's not in my bailiwick. It's not in my purview, but it should be. The system should be asking that question. And again, I go back to Rena Moran. If she was sitting here at the table, she would validate exactly the issue that we dealt with 10 years ago, and we're still having that same conversation. So it bothers me, Mr. Chair, that the system isn't thinking about people with disabilities as they look at setting up who is helping them design the system that's going to be going forward. And if you look at the report that Ms. Sommerfeld relates to, not one of those agencies has that in there. I look forward to Ms. Sommerfeld going back in and hopefully emailing you, Mr. Chair, and you, Mr. Chair, Senator Champion, so that you two can share that with the rest of the group. Because as we look at that aspect, you cannot not look at that, right? You have to take a look at that. You have to have that embedded in the culture of your organization, and that's what I'm getting to. So I'm not going to get wordsmithy on whether or not you met Title I of the ADA or Title II of the ADA or Section 504 of the Rehab Act from 1973, but rather, how is that conversation embedded, Mr. Chair, in your dialogue with folks when it comes to getting the system out? Does that make sense?
Well, can you just clarify, Senator Hoffman, the report that you're referencing is which one again?
It's
Sorry.
the one that was just done today, the task force report, Ms. Sommerfeld. It's in the packet. It was sent
Okay,
in the packet.
I may be, and I don't know, Ms. Sommerfeld, there's something further you wanted to add about that.
Oh, here it is. I
Any-
got it. Appendix A, SIS, the SIS Partnership Founding Executive Committee. When you look at who the local agency advisors are and the DCYF and DHS advisors, Mr. Chair, it's going to be on page 8.
I'm sorry, Senator Hoffman, can you just, this is which this is one of the documents we have?
It would be the update to the Minnesota Legislature. It's dated July 11th, 2024, and it was
And it's-
sent Child Protection Paperwork Reduction Act Progress Update. It's all embedded in the work that you're doing, Mr. Chair.
Was this a document that's in front of us, Senator Hoffman, one of the items for the agenda today?
It's
It's one part of the packet for today?
It
Okay.
was in the email. Again, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm part of the Groundhog Day because I spent the weekend at the Minneapolis airport trying to get on a Delta flight, and
Okay.
I couldn't. My bags
Maybe-
made it someplace else, but I never made it, so.
Well, in
I
any
asked
case-
my bags if they enjoyed the trip, and they said, yes, they did, but.
Okay, well, yeah, good. I don't know if,
That's okay. And it was specifically Tiki Brown, who's the commissioner, sent this report out.
oh, okay, that may
And-
be a,
Yeah, and it has to deal with Session Law 2023, Articles 14, Section.
it sounds like maybe
38.
that's not one of the things that we have today, but we'll definitely make sure we get some follow-up to Senator Hoffman about some of the things that he's asking. if we
Correct,
can.
Mr. Chair, but it is embedded in today's conversation. It absolutely is, and it just.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that as that report, and it was sent by I think your
From
staff
somebody-
sent it, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Good to know, yeah, Ms. Sommerfeld, we'll probably want to be pretty quick here, but Ms. Sommerfeld, yeah.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman. So that's where I was having a hard time tracking which report and which piece. I thought you maybe were talking about the DCYF Implementation Office
Right.
report, where we do actually have a liaison working specifically between DHS and DCYF on issues involving engagement with and incorporating policies that address concerns with people who have disabilities and making sure they have access to our system. And if you're talking about that report, that's more about the Paperwork Reduction Act. I think I'll certainly bring that message back. That report was really more about, it was a county proposal, DHS proposal a couple of years ago to go through SSIS and simply examine what pieces must be in there for the out-of-home placement plan. So that has, I don't believe we've been doing a lot of external engagement on that yet while we get some of our initial work. But as we move forward with SSIS modernization, we will definitely be doing a great deal of engagement across the external partners that we have, including folks in the disability community, if for no other reason than we have to be able to disaggregate data in the new SSIS system and our current one, most likely, in order to implement the MAFPA. And that will include folks with disabilities. So we are definitely going to be doing that engagement.
So,
Okay,
Mr.
good.
Mr.
Senator
Chair-
Hoffman, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
and
yeah.
that's at six, there were six identified themes that were listed there, and specifically the elements that affect the identity and address the vast racial disparities in the child welfare system. That comes from their report. Your name is on that report, Mr. Chair. I did the Delta thing and combined them today, but it's very germane to what you're talking about today. As we look at the system, that all has to be embedded in that conversation and including this report, Mr. Chair. So
Okay.
that answers my question, but I still
Good,
want
thank
to
you.
address the fact that it's very hard for us to really look at where's the intersectionality conversation happening within these conversations, and I'm yet to be convinced that they are. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you,
So
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Yeah, and I'll make sure, I'm still a little unclear about what you're referencing, but I'll work with staff to try to figure, I don't think I produced a report like that, but I may have gotten, but we'll keep in touch and check it out. I know Representative Mueller had a question.
Thank you, Chair Pinto. And Mr. Davis, yes. I wanted to ask just more details about sorry, I was taking notes on what you were, about what's happening for implementation. And when you looked at this relative caregiver grants, the one-time funding, you said that, I was a little unclear. You said that the RFP process takes a while, and so are you unable to use that funds? And so you're trying to wrap it up into something else? Or how is that going to work? I just needed a couple more
If we can
details.
clarify that, Mr. Davis.
Representative Mueller, yeah, so because we do have the current kinship.
Yeah, can you get the mic, make sure the microphone is, you can be heard by the mic.
Because we do have the current Kinship Navigator program, we are able to weave the funding that was appropriated this last session into that grant, so that we are able to expend the funds.
Yeah, so it's similar enough that they can get it out through that method. Yeah, thank you. I don't think we have, Senator Kroon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on the supporting relative caregiver grants, you mentioned, I believe, I'm looking here, $550,000 in one-time appropriation for relative caregiver grants to community-based nonprofits to provide cultural competence supports and connection to resources for those caring for relative children from communities disproportionately overrepresented in the state's child welfare system. My question relating to implementation of that, and maybe it's, I don't serve on the relevant committees, so maybe this is well known to other people in the room, but I'm struggling a little bit. I understand cultural competencies for social workers or county staff. I understand it for families maybe who are taking in a child from a different culture, but how does this work when we're talking about family members, relatives? What's the purpose of the cultural competency component to this grant?
Mr. Davis, and I should probably note, the legislature is the ones who enacted that, so I suppose the purpose would be to a certain extent directed to us, but if you can talk about how you're implementing that or working with that language, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll
Senator Fruin.
rephrase it to
Yeah.
how is that being implemented?
Fair enough. Mr. Davis.
I'm sorry, Senator, could you repeat the question?
Senator Kroon, you want to give it another?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'll be brief. I'm just,
Yeah, no problem.
I'm trying to see how this is playing out on the ground with the implementation of this one-time appropriation of $550,000 for the cultural competence supports and connection to resources grants to community-based nonprofits for people who are caring for relative children. So presumably children from their own family, and they're presumably, in most cases, you would think their own culture. How is that implemented, this $550,000 in grants to nonprofits? How's that being implemented?
And Senator Kroon, maybe I'll just say, as one of the folks who wrote that, I think the thinking was, I recall, that it's the culturally competent support for the family. So the idea is that the family is receiving support and services. The relative caregiver is in a forum that, from folks that are doing so, that is consistent with the family's culture, is supportive in that way, as I recall. Mr. Davis may have able to talk more about how that's actually implemented on the ground, but that I think was the purpose. Mr. Davis, maybe you can clarify a little bit about how that's working. Or Ms. Summerfeld.
Mr. Chair, Senator Kroon, I think I'm going to step in and answer that, just because I was a part of a lot of the
Yeah.
conversations when this legislation was
Recall.
built. And you're correct. When we're talking about cultural competency in this particular space, we will be looking at the agencies, who they're working with, and making sure that the folks who work at them are providing services to family in a way that meets them where they are and their culture. So there might need to be providers who can speak different languages, so that we're addressing family who might not speak English as their first language will have access to somebody who can help them who speaks their native language, to make sure the supports are available that way.
As one example. Senator Cruin, follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the funds are going to nonprofits, and what services, or who are the recipients of the services from the nonprofits? Is it the families themselves, or is it people that work in this area that are getting the actual services from the nonprofits?
Ms. Sommerfeld? I think it's the families, correct? Ms.
Yep, the
Sommerfeld.
families will be getting services from the agencies that receive the grant funding,
Yeah. Senator Cruin.
services and supports.
Senator Cruin, follow up on that, trying to,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll maybe follow up on this offline. There
Yeah.
still seems to be a disconnect if the family, if it's cultural competency services to family members who are caring for children from their own family and culture. I'm struggling to see what the cultural competency supports that the nonprofits are going to provide to those families. It makes sense if the nonprofit is providing services to the system or people that work within the system so that they can better provide the services in a culturally competent way. That makes sense to me. But if it's going directly from the nonprofits to the families who are caring for children from their own culture, I'm struggling to see what kind of services they're getting. And that's kind of the heart of my question.
yeah, and I think, Senator Cruin, this probably does go to the sort of legislative intent. I think the thinking is that if there are going to be services, if families need services support, which sometimes they do, we want to make sure those services support are being provided in the most culturally competent way possible. And so that's the idea. I hope that that's helpful then. Maybe worthy of more conversation, but I think that was at least the intent. So thanks for the line of questioning. Other member questions at all? I know we have been joined by Senator May Quaid, and at a break, I'll ask her to introduce herself, but we'll just see if there are other questions now. Not seeing any. And so, Mr. Davis, I know you've got these remaining slides about topics that are coming up. Was your plan to do that now versus doing that later, Ms. Sommerfeld? You were going to say something about this?
Yep, Mr. Chair, I think we'd worked out and talked to the staff or the committee that we would come back up for those.
Okay.
It just got advanced to this slide.
Fair
and
enough.
It won't move right now. So we're not
All right.
actually going to talk about SSIS at this moment.
Okay, and I think is that what we are, well, SSIS is one of the topics coming up, so I think we're ready then to move on to the next topic on the agenda and have the two of you come back up. So thank you so much. So as we do so, I'll ask Jonah Woolman to come up. Senator May Quaid, thanks for joining us, and just to ask you to introduce yourself since you're new to the task force and anything you'd like to say about your interest in serving on the task force and in this work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, everybody. Senator Erin May Quaid. I represent Senate District 56, which is Apple Valley, Rosemount, and a small portion of Egan. Glad to be with you all today. My interest is always in children and families, and so this very much aligns with that, and looking forward to digging into what is, I'm sure, a meaty body of work and information to take in, but I will be doing that, and I look forward to doing that with all of you.
Thanks so much, Senator. So glad to have you with us. Members, so now we're taking a little bit of a tangent, a little step away from what passed last session, just because of some scheduling issues, to hear from Adjournment Woolman from Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law about an effort to address, and again, this has to do with kinship care, Senator Crew and everybody else, regarding licensing standards. So, Ms. Woolman, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Pinto, and good afternoon, Chair Champion and other members of the committee. It's nice to see you all this afternoon. I'll be very brief because I know there's a lot on the agenda today. I'm here to talk briefly about a working group in Minnesota that has convened to look at making additional changes to our foster care licensing standards to support more opportunities for relatives to get licensed for foster care. In September of 2023, the Administration of Children and Family Services published new guidelines and a new rule allowing agencies to implement kin-specific foster care licensing. And the new rule from the Children's Bureau allows there to be different standards for licensing relatives than non-relative foster care providers.
Do that again. Do that again. Ms. Woolman, I want to just pause to direct folks' attention to, there's like a 12-page document called Kin-Specific Foster Care Licensing Standards, which is provided by Ms. Woolman. It's on the packet. And so you want to direct your attention to that. Ms. Woolman, please continue.
Thanks. Yeah. So I did include some documents with the presentation today that I'll briefly touch on. The goal in the new federal policy is to streamline the process to license relatives. The goal is to do that within 24 hours. It provides the same funding incentives for states to do this. Several years ago, we came together in Minnesota to rewrite our foster care licensing statute, and that included looking at the background barriers. So I want to just let folks know about the work of this new working group. This is building on last session's support for kinship resources as well. The working group has brought together 40 or 50 individuals from around the state to advise about a response to this change in policy. It consists of many people, workers who are doing licensing, tribal partners, state and county partners, attorneys, and other practice partners, as well as community members. Our goal is to have a comprehensive report with recommendations that look at how Minnesota could license relatives differently. We have received some data from DHS that I'm not quite prepared to talk about today, but generally speaking, relative placements are more stable in Minnesota and tend to last longer. We also know from social science research that this change is not motivated to compromise child safety, but instead is a chance to further support relatives and kin, which we know are better for kids because they maintain relational stability and that connection to family and culture. So I look forward to delivering recommendations from this work group. The two subcommittees are specifically looking at the licensing statutory provisions. The other part is looking at more support for informal kin. The documents I included just to highlight for you are a brief overview of the licensing standards, an article about the Adam Walsh Act and the requirements for states relating to background criminal sanctions. And the final document, I think, is probably the most critical to this work. It's a 2-page document called Kin-Specific Standards Crosswalk. That document is prepared by a national group looking at implementing these standards around the country, and it helps us understand where Minnesota is currently in compliance with the new recommendations and where we're not. So
And members,
the work-
I'll just
yeah.
point out, that's the last page of that packet I referenced called Kin-Specific Foster Care Licensing Standards. You'll see there's a landscape-oriented document that says in tiny type at the top, Joanna Woolman Kin-Specific Standards Crosswalk, Minnesota, and that's what Ms. Woolman's referencing. So please continue, just want to orient folks.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deeply into the weeds on this now, but this is what states that are implementing this are using to walk through where we need to make changes to comply. And I would say just in terms of broad strokes, some of the changes they recommend are process-based, like having someone notarize a document before they get licensed, having to pay a fee, having online access to be able to apply to be a foster parent. Others are more, I would say, substantive or related to child safety, and those relate more to the specific criminal sanctions and other types of things. And so we'll be coming up with some recommendations ahead of the session and hopefully some draft legislation to implement these in Minnesota. I just wanted to highlight this working group today to give you a little bit of information and to let you know that our report will be coming, I hope, in September or October, probably October. If there are questions today, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I think Chair Pinto could provide my contact information if there were additional questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Woolman. I know Chair Champion has something. Chair Champion.
Thank you, Professor Woolman. Just a couple questions as it pertains to the group, and I'm looking forward to getting the report from you. You said there's 40 to 50 individuals that you have pulled together, and you said that there are community partners. Can you name some of those community partners?
Ms. Woolman.
Yes. Well, Ms. Houston, who is here today, is a part of that group. We also have members of like community licensing agencies. So we have someone from Foster Advocates there as well. We have folks from Ampersand. We have folks from Family Alternatives, Evolve, Lutheran Social Services. We also have representation from MIAC and participating tribal members as well.
Senator Champion.
Thank you for the follow-up. And then my second question is, and perhaps you may agree with this or disagree, are you all looking at the fact that DHS has the ability to look at someone's background and even an arrest background, even if they've never been convicted of a crime, and or maybe exonerated, but the department has the ability to look at that arrest record and determine from their own whatever pool of information that they use, but they can make a decision as to what that arrest would have or could have been, and then say someone is disqualified because of that arrest record without there being any adjudication. Will you all be looking at that issue? And I want to make sure that you understand my question.
Professor Woolman.
Hugely concerning. I totally understand the issue, and yes. So I would direct your attention, and I would love to talk more, Senator Champion, about this article about the Adam Walsh Act. The federal government recommends very few criminal sanction barriers. 16 states in the country have adopted the Adam Walsh Act limited list of child safety focused barriers. Minnesota is way beyond that in terms of what we look at, and both in terms of what we look at that is not a permanent bar, but also our permanent and 5-year bars. So yes, we are absolutely looking at the pool of information available and how that information is used.
Chair Champion, follow up?
The last thing that I'll say, I think that's an important topic because it's something that I am very concerned about because I understand that there are grandmothers who cannot take on their grandchildren because if you have an uncle that may have been arrested but never adjudicated guilty of anything, and then you have DHS and others who might look at that information and say they can't be a resource or even for like a license and so on and so forth. I know I'm speaking about two different things, but they both apply just when you think in terms of how the information is utilized. So thank you so much. I look forward to getting that information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got Senator May Quaid, I know, who has a question. Senator May Quaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is maybe not directly related to the Adam Walsh Act or specific felony barriers, but one question I have about kinship foster care is, are family members who have terminated parental rights for previous children eligible to become foster parents to other family members' children?
Professor Woolman, do you know that?
I appreciate the question. It's an issue very, very close to my heart and one that I'm hoping we can resolve in a better way. So right now in Minnesota, we have a 20-year bar for a prior termination of parental rights on applying for an involuntary termination of parental rights to be a foster parent. That is, I think, the most extreme in the country. I'm not aware of any other state that has something even close to that. The Adam Walsh Act doesn't recommend any specific related barrier, but that would be a factor to consider when making a decision about foster care placement. And so my hope is that Minnesota can take a really close look at that particular provision and think about making some changes because, as we know, a lot can change, and the reasons for a termination are very complicated and complex. And so that is an area where I think Minnesota could make some real improvements in access for relative foster care licensing.
Senator May Quaid, follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I absolutely agree with Professor Woolman here. I think this is a big area for us to maybe take a look at because, yeah, the reasons for termination of parental rights are many and not always directly related to somebody's ability to care for a family member's child, including there are people, because we have no regulations around surrogacy in the state of Minnesota, sometimes one of the ways that surrogates transfer parental rights from them given at birth to the intended parents is terminating parental rights. And so what we're actually doing is causing people who become surrogates, preventing them from becoming foster parents for family members of their own simply because they gave birth to a child that, you know, went to the intended parents.
Thank you, Senator May Quaid. Chair Champion has a follow-up.
And Professor Woodman, have you seen or that there is a difference between the criteria that Minnesota uses for kinship placements versus adoption?
Professor Woolman.
That's one of the issues that we tried to resolve a few years ago. There was a very large difference between the adoption standards and the foster care standards. We sought to remedy that a couple years ago. There are a couple differences still. Our adoption standards are much closer to Adam Walsh than our foster care standards were. And that inconsistency was also harming children because it was creating a situation where a relative may be eligible down the road to adopt them, but would not be eligible for a foster care license. And we know that would not be good for that child to have to go to a different home if they were ultimately going to move in with that relative. Lots of issues to look at in this working group. I appreciate the question.
And last but
Go, yeah,
certainly not
Mr. Chair,
least,
yeah, follow up.
last but certainly not least, a part of that difference when you think in terms of if someone may be eligible for adoption but not for kinship, wouldn't that affect also like North Star support and payments or
Funding and supports?
Funding and supports?
Yeah, Professor Woolman.
So Right now, there's a requirement to be a foster provider, basically, that you need to be licensed. And it certainly, I think, is in the purview potentially of a judge to place a child in a non-licensed home, but that would prevent access to those kinds of funds, right? And so everything is sort of linked together. Like, in order to get North Star, you have to get licensed. In order to get licensed, you have to follow the list of things that we say in Minnesota you need to do to get licensed. So those are pretty tethered together at this point.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chair?
thank you,
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
okay.
I believe it is tied together, and so
No.
I think that it's a complicated issue that needs to be dealt with expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Not seeing other questions. Professor Woolman, I appreciate, I know this is only a few minutes for your presentation, but at least members wanted to orient us to this really important issue of if kids cannot be with their parents, then certainly we want to do all that we can to have them be with family members. And right now, the standards are the same for care, whether it's a family member or not. And that just, I think, for many of us, that just does not make any sense. And so the work that you all are doing is really important. So thank you, and I know we'll continue to be in touch leading up to next session and then as well. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. And so now turning to the next topic, I'll ask Quisse Booker from Hennepin County to head up. And members, of course, one of the significant, really significant steps forward that we made together this past session was the African American Family Preservation Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. Big thanks to Chair Champion, to Representative Agbaje and the House, and I do need to give a shout out to former representative. She's been cited several times now by Senator Hoffman, but Rena Moran, current Ramsey County Commissioner, for just incredible work. And Jeff Hayden, Senator Hayden, thank you, good point. So a number of folks, but a significant progress. And there's a lot that we're going to need to do to make sure that that the act works well for kids and families, which is absolutely the need, and make sure that we have the resources in place. So we're going to start by hearing from Hennepin County, which has been doing work of this type for a period of time, and this is part of what we heard during hearings. So to hear from Hennepin County kind of looking backwards, and then also hearing from that county looking forwards, and then from Ramsey as well. I appreciate those two counties for stepping up and doing this work during the phase-in of AAFPA. I think that we are pretty ready. I'll wait for, not quite, okay, no problem. And there is a presentation from Hennepin. I'll ask folks to have that up. This might be a good time to note that this meeting may run a little long. So. But we will try to keep moving. Okay, I think we're all set. Mr. Booker, you'll be starting, yes? Okay, yeah, please introduce yourself and then proceed with your presentation, and welcome to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Quisse Booker, and I'm the Director of Children and Family Services for Hennepin County.
And if you can make sure that you're as sort of being picked up by the mic as well as possible. Yeah, thank you, sir.
And my presentation today is going to be brief in regards to Hennepin County's work with our partners, Village Arms, on the African American Preservation Act pilot that occurred from 2020 to December of 2023. The first slide here shows 2021 data that children of color make up 43% of the children's population in Hennepin County. However, they make up 75% of the population reported to child protection. So even before families enter the child protection system, the disparities are very striking. The disparities continues as families move deeper into our child protection system, as you can see from the lines under the first line, as they move through our intake process, our out-of-home process, and our screening process. It continues, but the variation does decrease. And as you can see from the slide as well, the disparities are more prevalent for African American and Native American children. Next slide, please. In 2020, Hennepin County and Village Arms collaborated on a 3-year pilot to deliver culturally specific services that promote the stability and security of African American families involved in the child protection system. Under this pilot, Village Arms delivered direct family liaison services to African American families in Hennepin County's child protection system. And several provisions of the pilot included culturally responsive services for African American families. Village Arms provided liaison services to families, Some of the piloted provisions are enacted into the African American Family Preservation Act legislation that recently passed. And this pilot really aligned with Hennepin County's board direction and investment and strategy in 3 areas: child well-being transformation, disparity reduction, and racism as a public health crisis. Next slide, please. Our social workers partnered with pilot families to leverage family strengths, culture, and support networks to address an implicit bias and develop creative solutions that safely reduce disproportionality in key child protection outcomes whenever possible. Our work with the Village Arms liaisons joined the child protection investigator at initial contact with the family and remained throughout the life of the case. They were available to the family for joint consultations at key decision points in the case continuum process, including family group decision-making meetings, court hearings, and any other decision-making process where the family requires support or advice. Next slide, please. Data was collected for families participating in the pilot and for all other African-American families served by Hennepin County through the same time period. Outcomes for these groups were compared into a baseline Hennepin County data from 2019, and pilot cases included multiracial children for whom at least one race is Black. There were a total of 196 cases in the pilot involving 289 distinct children. Next slide, please. Overall, the children who participated in the pilot had better outcomes than those that did not participate in the pilot. Nearly 60% nearly 60% of the measures, 90% of the families remained at home. More cases were closed after the initial assessment and that did not require ongoing case management services. 100% of the children who entered out-of-home placement were reunified within 12 months, and most of the children who did enter out-of-home placement were placed with kinship. There were very few incidents of repeat maltreatment in the pilot cases. Next slide, please. Hennepin County and Village Arms developed replicable strategies to support the stability and security of African American families, including the case continuum extended investigation stage for an additional 45 days to collaboratively identify family supports, make referrals, and co-create a case plan for an additional 45-day period. This supported several families to avoid moving deeper into the system. Low caseloads allow staff to spend significant more time working with families and our liaisons. Family group decision-making meetings early and often in the case, especially around key decision points, help the family advocate for themselves as well as Village Arms staff advocating for them. Referring families to culturally appropriate services provided referring families to culturally appropriate providers when service needs were identified. Kinship first approach when out-of-home placement was needed. We first looked at kinship rather than placing the child in non-kinship families. Some of the other learning from the pilot includes how we engage with families and how we engage with our providers. And we've incorporated some of that directly into our anti-oppressive section of our training curriculum. I will pause here to see if there are any questions on the pilot.
And are there questions that folks have? I'm going to ask one clarifying question, which is just the timing. Can you remind us, I don't know if you'd said this, about when the pilot, you said it was a 3-year pilot, was running from like maybe 21 to earlier this year? Or just
From 2020 to December of 2023.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Senator Hoffman, please.
These are amazing numbers, 100% reunified, 90% will stay in their homes. What were you doing different now than what was happening in the past? I mean, what was if there was one thing different, what's the one thing different?
And really probably difference between the control group and then this group,
I mean, these numbers are just, that's like, well, compare, contrast it. Right?
Mr. Booker.
Yeah.
So I think there are 2 things that we did differently. I think our work with our provider Village Arms really advocating for our families significantly assisted with us in our decision-making process. And then the pilot, the workers had lower caseloads, and that really gave our staff time to work with the families and really evaluate what the families' needs were and how best we can get them there.
To maybe Senator Hoffman, yeah.
The size of the caseload. So we know caseload, 1 in 20, what was this?
So, Mr. Booker, if you can, yeah, share, do you happen to have numbers, I don't know, to put you on the spot, a sense of caseload difference there?
Right, there's a significant caseload difference. I believe for in our investigations area, we do an assignment of 1.2 cases per month for the investigation area. And this allowed us to slow this. Our Village Arms pilot cases, workers got probably 1 case per month and carried no more than 5 cases. And that really gave us time to work through each case. There was also active efforts involved significantly with our pilot cases to ensure that every step was taken to avoid bringing a child into out-of-home placement.
And can I just clarify, I heard you say 1.2 cases per month for the control group and 1 case per month, so like a 20%
No,
difference.
so our
Booker.
non-control group is 1.2 cases a month. That's our assignment ratio.
1.2 cases per month,
Right.
assignment ratio,
Right.
okay.
And so for the pilot cases, it was the workers there was no assignment ratio, but they got like 1 case per month probably.
1 case per month, okay, so 1.2 cases versus 1 case, like a 20% reduction in caseload that
Yeah.
would imply.
Yeah.
This is what I'm understanding, okay. Thanks. Representative Mueller had a question.
Thank you, Chair Pinto. And I'm just looking at the slide number 6, where you looked at performance measures and outcomes. I wanted to know, sorry, I'm a data person, and when you talked about, it said that pilot cases outperformed comparison groups in nearly 60% of the measures. What were some of those specific measurable outcomes that you were able to look at? And if there was a report available for us to read
Yeah.
that actually showed, here's how we're measuring this, here's how we gather the data, here's how we analyze the data, I would really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's make sure we get that report. And Mr., I would assume that some of the measures are the ones on this slide 6, but Mr. Booker?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, some of the measures are the ones on the slide, and there's a very detailed report in regards to our work with our partners at Village Arms that Liz can get to you.
So if we can make sure to get that in everybody's hands. Representative Mueller, follow up further? Okay. And I have a question. Do you have a sense in the difference in cost? Of course, having lower caseloads, there's going to be, sort of a higher cost per family. Well worth it. Let's emphasize, like absolutely needed. But do you have a sense of that as we consider, continuing to provide support for this really important work?
So I know because the team carried lower caseloads, there was a significant increase in cost. Also, we worked with Village Arms regarding identifying culturally specific services. And so there were some challenges in terms of finding service providers, but some of that, in a couple of cases, we had to do individual contracts with service providers who were not in our contract or rate to provide some services.
Sure.
So there was added cost there. And that's an area we're going to have to continue to build as we look at enacting this bill as well.
Yeah, and that may be just something we'll just keep an eye on as things go forward. So, okay. Looking to see other clarifying questions? Sorry. It looks like Senator McQuaid has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if you could go back to, I believe it was the first slide that showed the racial data of.
Yeah, let's
Thank
do
you.
that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the top line and I'm seeing multiracial children make up 8.3%. And then when you get down to, case management, OHP entries, we're looking at 30.5%, which to me looks like the largest jump from children representative of and then representative in this system. And so I'm just wondering if there's more data on what we're considering multiracial, because that's such a broad category, and if there's any trends within that group of children that are worth noting.
Thank you. Mr. Booker, any insight into that?
So multiracial children, how families identify themselves is how they reflect in the data. And so multiracial children are children who are families who identify them as one or more data. I think our data team can tell you, but a lot of the families who are identified as multiracial, and I don't want to give a percentage, has one of those races identified as African American or Black. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, Senator McQuaid?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that. That would have been my guess too. And so I guess one of the things that I'm thinking of as we think about this data, it might even be more striking to think about that 36.5% of cases that are Black children, and then we have maybe 30% or a significant portion of that who are also multiracial but Black in that category as well. And that's a really, really high percentage. And so when we're talking about disparities, that's really stuck out to me.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll note in terms of the the expansion from that top line to the bottom, of course, American Indian, Alaska Native starts at 0.9% and jumps up to 13. So it's just there's, this is what drove the passage of the laws, just recognizing there's massive disparities that we needed to address, and we need to keep driving forward. Other questions at all folks have? This has been very helpful. So this is looking backwards, and I think now we're continuing with your presentation about now that we've passed, AAFPA and Hennepin is one of the counties that's implementing it. If you can talk about what your plans are there, and then we'll ask Ramsey County to come up and do the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Booker.
So really brief on implementation of the African American Family Preservation Act legislation. So we've begun our work about a month ago. We have identified our core planning team, and our core planning team includes representation from the county attorney's office, and will later include representation from other stakeholders such as the court. Since this legislation fundamentally changes our entire case continuum, our planning team consists of members from most of our service areas within CFS. And in addition, we'll be branching out the planning team to have several sub-work groups consisting of subject matter experts in each area that is identified in the legislation. We've also met jointly with DCYF and Ramsey County to discuss implementation of the phase-in plan, and those meetings will continue to be ongoing. Our CQY team at Hennepin County is also very heavily involved in the work we're doing around the implementation of this legislation to provide in-depth analysis so that we can quickly respond to any shift in resources needed as we look to implement this bill. We've also identified thus far there will be significant training needs. Our internal planning team has set as a means for sharing, vetting, and coordinating planning efforts. Our project managers will work side by side with the service areas and stakeholders throughout 2025, so past the phasing approach and towards implementation to determine what's working well, what's not working well, and where adjustments have been needed. Next slide, please. The implementation of this bill will also include some of our existing practices within Hennepin County. Our technical assistance program for mandated reporters is a 6-month program for agencies that provide training and consultation and a personalized look at trends in child protection reporting data. We use that knowledge to build a base of county and community resources that exist to support families as an alternative to making a report. We recently conducted a 6-month pilot with one of the school districts in Hennepin County, and it was really successful in showing different disparities in the data in the cases that were being reported. Our intake review team invites community partners into the screening process using a structural, culturally responsive approach to reduce the bias in our work. And we will also require some additions to this team as we continue to vet how reports are being made. We estimate, as with our work with the pilot, our family group decision-making team will need considerable resources, as this legislation will require more family group decision-making meetings to have families participate in the decision-making process around decisions needed for their family, such as out-of-home placement, whether or not TPRs need to be filed, and any other thing that involves decisions around the family. And then our prevention work, which includes some of our parent support outreach program and other prevention work, will require additional resources so that we're not having families go into the deep end services, but in instances where we can provide prevention services, we're able to do so in a timely and efficient manner. We will be continuously assessing the following through implementation of the phasing program, and then as we implement it across our entire continuum. Staffing needs. Active efforts that is being rolled out across the continuum require significant resources, and so we'll be analyzing and shifting resources there as needed. As I mentioned, caseloads will have to look different so that we can enact active efforts. And then the increase for our providers to ensure that the culturally competent services that are needed by families are properly identified, defined, and the service arrays available for families to take advantage of the services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Booker. So any questions for Hennepin County? Not seeing any. Hope I'm looking online. So thank you so much to you. I'm going to ask Ramsey County to make your way up then, talk about your plans. As they do, members, I should have directed folks' attention earlier to this legal size document called Key Implementation and Report Dates, which lays out some dates. I'd asked House Research to put this together, some dates over the next 2.5 years. And you'll see there's just a lot going on. And I thought it'd be useful to have in one place as each item gets rolled out and takes effect. And so please have that in mind. And then we have our folks from Ramsey County, and not sure who's going to be going first. I guess Ms. Thompson, perhaps? Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Sophia Thompson. I am Ramsey County's Social Services Director, and I've brought Alex with me in case we have questions. Good afternoon. And thanks for allowing Ramsey County to speak in front of you today about our process for implementing the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act. Today, I will talk about our approach to implementation thus far and the steps we've taken. Tried to break it down into a few categories for you all today to really get a sense of what it is taking for us to get to implementation. Starting with reading, reviewing, and interpreting, identifying where our staff leads are going to be and the project planning for this, meeting, cadence, and partner identification, determining our communication plan, and then managing questions or crisis management. We're really starting our process with understanding the expectations of the Act. This really includes a line-by-line review. Thus far, this has been completed by our county attorney's office and our direct program line, our managers and supervisors in our program areas. For context, we have multiple county attorneys working on the legislation, and we have about 100 hours of county attorney time in the last 3 weeks looking at the implementation of what this will take just to understand. We also estimate that since the early part of this year, that there's been over 200 attorney hours, making sure that we get this right. We want to be clear that we support this effort and we want to get it right. So understanding what's being asked is really where we want to begin. Identifying staff to lead the project. This isn't something that we can just ask our other staff to do or add on to someone's plate. It's important that we make sure that we allocate resources so that this gets the full attention that it deserves. And so right now we've allocated 1 FTE. We anticipate that we will need to allocate more staff time. The bulk of our work we anticipate will be with our meetings. I think the phrase is measure twice and cut once. Our plan here really is about who we're meeting with, meeting frequently, and getting on the same page. We understand that our partners in Hennepin, for this to be successful, we want to be aligned in how we approach this. And so we are also meeting with DHS. We are meeting with our program areas weekly. We are meeting with our county attorneys bi-weekly. We are meeting with labor, HR, and procurement because all of these areas will be impacted. We also are considering how are we going to have our communication with community, our fiscal partners, other impacted staff, because this is a change for them and we want them to also embrace and be on board, and then our county board. We are determining our communication plan. This will be internal and external because we want people to know that, yes, we support this effort and there will be a challenge. There will be significant resources to get this right. And I mentioned at the beginning crisis management. There are folks that are concerned, and so we are also spending time calming those fears, slowing down, being planful so that we get it right.
Mm-hmm.
A few observations thus far. Our county attorney's office has identified some conflicting statute guidance. And so really, when I talk about looking into the 260C particularly, we want to make sure that we are going about the implementation in the right way. And I'll be a little bit more specific. We need to determine the appropriate standard to implement the bill. Pre-petition planning, active efforts, what does that look like? It's defined in other areas. We want to make sure we understand what that means. Planning requirements, culturally appropriate services, as mentioned earlier. What does that mean? What does that look like? And permanency. We are thoughtful about the resources needed to meet the demands. Early staff estimates include a significant increase in our child protection staff, our county attorney's office, and our support staff. Training, initially and ongoing. I also want to bring to your attention that often Hennepin and Ramsey are competing for the same very talented employees. And so this makes it difficult because we will be looking to support this effort, but looking at the same pool of candidates. We also are thoughtful about our community capacity to support the active efforts and contracting for this in a culturally appropriate way in the true spirit of the legislation. And so Ramsey County is very excited about the opportunity to operationalize this legislation, and the lift being asked is massive. We haven't put a dollar amount on it yet because we are still doing that dig. But we hope to be back soon to talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work. As a Ramsey County chair, I, of course, hope that you win, but as my co-chair from Hennepin County, may feel the other way. So, speaking of which, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry that I didn't get your name first. What is your name, ma'am?
Sophia Thompson.
Here's my question. What is your role at Ramsey County as it pertains to implementation of this African American Family Preservation Act?
Director Thompson.
Absolutely. Senator Champion. My role as the Director of Social Services, this is one of the areas that sits under my scope of work. And so my role will be to ensure successful implementation, making sure that we have the resources from a budgetary standpoint, all the way down into making sure that families are being served with the respect and continuity that they deserve.
Chair Champion.
Thank you. And so I heard you on several occasions talk about resources, but you also talked about you haven't started implementing it. The whole reason for implementing it and getting a better sense of it and the working group is to determine what is needed and what is not needed. But it sounds like to me like you're putting the cart before the horse because you're constantly talking to us about resources, but you haven't implemented that. So help me reconcile those two thoughts because it sounds like there's a contradiction in terms.
Director Thompson.
Senator Champion, from a planning standpoint, we want to be able to, again, understand what's being asked prior to that implementation. And so as part of the process where we are anticipating, we do have an obligation to anticipate what is going to be in front of us. And we're working closely with the Department of Human Services to understand and so that we're not just putting out that's why I don't want to come in front of you with a number today and say it will look like this. That would be inappropriate. But we are looking at what it would take and anticipate that it will be significant resources.
Okay. Chair Champion.
Are you not implementing ICWA at this time?
Senator Champion, and yes, we are implementing ICWA at this time.
And do you understand that this has some components similar to ICWA?
Ms. Thompson.
Senator Champion, yes.
Mr. Chair.
So if we know that to be true, then help me understand what additional support does your county attorney's office need in order to understand active efforts, because active efforts are already being implemented in ICWA. So if you can help me understand that, that would be helpful.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Senator Champion. I'll take a moment just to make sure that I get the response to your question. And
Perhaps you,
Mr. Chair, yeah.
so thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. It's pretty simple. You all already, you were talking about your county attorney's office, and you want to make sure that you understand exactly what's going on. And I'm saying that's interesting because you guys are implementing ICWA. You told me that you are implementing ICWA. Then I said, and this being sort of similar to ICWA when we think in terms of active efforts, you're already implementing active efforts. You understand what active efforts are there. So help me understand where the additional costs will be here and why you need to do some additional educating of your county attorneys if you all are already implementing ICWA.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you again, Senator Champion. When I speak about the additional resources needed specifically with the county attorney's office, it's not in the education. I apologize if I misspoke to that earlier. Our county attorney, or excuse me, our legal team that works on cases, they also have a smaller caseload, much as the staff would have a smaller caseload. And so looking at our numbers, and I do not have our specific numbers, but similar to Hennepin, we know that our numbers are, of African-American children specifically, are higher. In looking at that, let me get my thoughts together. We know that with those smaller caseloads, it will require more time and more allocation of those resources.
Mr. Chair?
And are you seeing that your ICWA, the work you do with ICWA requires more time right now?
Ms. Thompson?
Senator Champion, yes, it does require more time.
Mr. Chair?
And thank you. How much more time?
Ms. Thompson?
Senator Champion, I am going to ask Alex Cleveland, who is one of our deputy directors in the direct area, to come and add some additional context to that specifically.
If that's all right with you, Mr. Chair, I think we'll direct it to, so Mr. Cleveland, please introduce
Yes.
yourself.
Thank you,
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Alex Cleveland, I'm a co-deputy director in Children and Family Services with Bobby Jo Potter, who's gratefully on vacation this week. She got an opportunity to be away. So I think that the time piece has to do with caseload size, active efforts. So to actually meet the expectations, when you have caseloads across case management that might be 12, 14, 18, 20 cases, the expectation for active efforts in ICWA, half of that or more. Generally, I believe the caseload, we're talking about 8 cases is kind of the ideal. There might be a little bit of movement there. So from a implementation of MAPA, which again, we fully support and appreciate, we're talking about having to move the work and reduce those caseloads to make sure that we're doing better by families. Hopefully, removing less children long-term, even though we've been doing a lot of work already to reduce that in the last 5 years, by half, basically. But with that will also cause more work and needs from the county attorney's office, more child protection workers, support staff, et cetera. So from a timing point of view, it's just, it really amounts to doing more with less with families. And so I think that's more or less what I think Ms. Thompson is kind of speaking about.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair,
course, yeah.
Mr. Cleveland, where
Yeah.
I'm having a disconnect with your answer along with Ms. Thompson's answers, because the whole idea is that if you're doing more on the front end to make sure that you have a different analysis when it comes to whether a child or family should be put into the system that would require charging in the county attorney's office, if that is decreased, then there's no way that you need more support or help from the court or from the county attorney's office. So, and you haven't started it, so I always start off or become a little concerned when I hear Ms. Thompson 4 or 5 times talk about resources, but you haven't done the work in order to truly see what it's going to take and then report to us exactly what it takes because you've had a chance to look at it and be very thoughtful about it. I just want to go on the record saying I'm a little concerned about your commitment, especially as I'm hearing this testimony that has gone forth today, because the whole idea is to do more on the front end, make sure that you're being fair on the front end. And if you're being fair on the front end, then that means you won't have as many cases coming through child protection, and therefore you won't need the benefit or the intellectual capacity of the county attorney's office, who's already doing active efforts with ICWA. So thank you so very much, and thank you for your patience.
no,
But
thank you,
I just
Mr.
want
Chair.
to know that I'm going on record, and I'll be giving Commissioner Rena Moran a call because I'm a little concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hanson, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion, for that, because I am right there with you. I think it's really important to me to understand, we passed this bill as a, to roll out to Hennepin and Ramsey counties, and I share the concerns, and I would definitely like a follow-up on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, yeah. I was not sure if Director Thompson wants to say anything at this point. You can certainly be getting back to task force members. Ms. Thompson, you do want to say something? Yeah, Director.
Absolutely,
Thompson, yeah.
Representative Hanson. And yes, I will reiterate that we are in full support. And if it came off that we are not, or that there is some hesitation, there is not. We are in the mode of planning for this, and we will definitely get back to you regarding your concerns.
Good. Thank you so much, Senator Cruin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I haven't been quite as involved in this particular act as it was being developed, but what I heard all seemed perfectly logical to me. You're consulting with your county attorney's office about this implementation, which I think is admirable, commendable, something that more people should do rather than be reactive after the implementation and then go to the county's attorney's office to clean up issues. So, and what I'm hearing is it's a matter of scale, which also seems perfectly logical to me. So the fact that you may be doing certain things with ICWA, and then you're going to it should just be, well, you're doing it already, but it sounds like the scale is quite a bit different with this act than it is with ICWA, which seems perfectly logical to me. I did not hear anything in your testimony that would suggest you're not in support of the act. In fact, I heard the exact opposite of that. So that's my impression in looking this up. And I do also share some interpretive concerns as a lawyer about some of these definitions. And so I think, I would love to hear from him too, because what I'm hearing is completely different than the previous comments. Just for the record, I think what you're doing, you should be doing.
Well, maybe I'll note this. This is very early days, right? So it's July. You'll be, it takes effect on January 1. Definitely wanted to hear from you and have members of the task force. And this is very good that we've engaged on this. I think you and commissioners and others are aware of the interest of the task force. And so it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on. What's good is this is, I kind of wanted to make sure we did this as soon as possible after the session, and then can certainly continue to have conversations. You'll know that there's a lot of interest in the task force as this takes effect in these two counties and then takes effect statewide.
And
So yeah, Mr. Chair, please, yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure if what Senator Kroon and I are both hearing are different, and I can understand that there's a difference in perspective. Logic, as you so eloquently stated, is not whether there should not be a logical approach to it, because the logical approach to it is why we did a phase up and we put a work group on top of it so information can be shared, definition can be realized, and there's been some previous work that has been done already, and some of the capacity that's already been provided and already embedded into the county attorney's offices. So that is true. When you think to the issue of scale, no one knows what it is. So to come and say all these things around scale and what it is going to be before you've had a chance to even implement it is usually code for when people sometimes don't want to do something. They talk about the massive cost that it takes in order to do it. And last but certainly not least, I mentioned this earlier about the work group. We designed it with a phase-in in order to say, okay, what's needed, what are things and the kinks that need to be worked out, and you do that work, and then you come and you tell us, as a result of the work that we've done, here are the problems, here are the challenges. They may come back and say, it takes more time, it needs more training with county attorneys, or it may need more time with workers who have to do the active efforts, because here's the way they're defining it and how they address it. All that makes sense. But if we put the cart before the horse, and what I've heard many different times throughout this conversation, that's what's causing me concern. I'm a logical person. I'm a thoughtful person, such as everyone else that is around the table. So, but it's also perhaps true that different people, two people can be in the same room and hear something different. Bill Gates would tell you that about his friends. Some believed him and others didn't.
Fair enough. We're going to have Senator Chair Champion get the last word on this issue for now, but certainly something that's going to continue to be of great interest, task force members and beyond. So thank you so much, Ramsey County and Hennepin County. We're going to ask DHS.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and DCYF to come back up, share a little bit about the work that you're doing on AAFPA, and then that'll turn us right into the next topic about SSIS. So having Mr. Davis and Ms. Somerville come back up, I'm assuming it's going to be Mr. Davis who speaks. And members, we're back on the presentation that says 2024 Child Welfare Legislation Implementation Update from DCYF. And it's slide 3, I believe is where we're at now. Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act, and talking about what the agency is doing at the state level regarding the act.
Members, still Marvin Davis, Deputy Director, Child Safety and Permanency. So next we have the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. The 2024 legislature subsequently passed a law requiring counties and financially responsible. What
are we?
Okay. Following the end of the legislative session, the department has been reviewing the final engrossment to establish a timeline of effective dates and due dates to develop our implementation plan and confirm the appropriations. The department has held an initial meeting with Hennepin and Ramsey counties, who are the phase-in counties. We are currently working to establish the external working group required in legislation for this broader statewide work group. We are working to establish a method of communication to keep all stakeholders updated on implementation efforts. We are working to hire staff in the department for the established African American Child Wellbeing Unit. The new department commissioner, Tiki Brown, has set meetings with Senator Champion and Representative Abaje beginning in early August that will include a discussion of their recommendations for community organizations on the work group. We are in the process of hiring a project manager to assist us with implementation. We are working to develop a website for implementation process communications. We are meeting with community stakeholders so that we can provide updates on progress with implementation, and we have been in discussion with other key partners as for engagement with the statewide working group. And we've already heard from Hennepin and Ramsey County, so I won't mention that. We look forward to coming back and providing more updates as we have them.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll just see if anybody has questions regarding the DHS/DCYF work on AFPA. And not seeing any. And so we're going to move on then to the next section on the agenda and next slide, which relates to the Social Services Information System.
So the 2023 legislature appropriated funding for the department to study and make recommendations for paperwork reduction related to the documentation of child protection casework. This work encompasses 3 major components: a review of current child protection documentation work within SSIS, a review of the current state of SSIS technical stability and performance, and an assessment with recommendations for future modernization. As an update to the 2023 legislation, Minnesota IT published 2 requests for offers, or RFOs. The first one was for identifying a consultant capable of examining existing performance and stability concerns with the current system. An expert in software architecture and programming was hired and began work this past month. The second RFO was published this month to hire a consulting firm capable of researching potential platforms, approaches, and associated costs to modernize SSIS. We expect a report to be available in early spring of 2025. The department completed an extensive and systematic review of current data requirements between January and April of this year. There were 12 listening sessions with over 100 participants from county and tribal social service agencies and department policy staff. The 2024 legislature subsequently passed a law requiring counties and financially responsible agency, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Let me try that again. Got my slides messed up. Okay, that's the federal management. Okay.
Mr. Davis, we can have you,
Yeah,
do you recall, were there a couple more points you were going to make regarding that, or we can?
as for the 2024 legislation on SSIS, the governor's supplemental budget included $10 million to begin planning SSIS modernization with the expectation that there will be additional funding requests for full implementation. The initial funding will be used to staff Minute with architects who can select the appropriate platform based on recommendation, purchase development tools, hire vendors, and begin implementation of recommendations based on the priorities established by the department, counties, and tribes.
Okay, we'll see. We've got a couple other folks who are talking about SSIS, but if there are questions members have for folks from the agency right now regarding that, and not seeing any, I'm going to try to keep an eye online as well. So thank you so much. I think we're now going to turn to hearing from AMC. I'm not, if Ms. Broskoff maybe is coming up next from Brown County, or, thank you. And please, once you're ready, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Broskoff. I am the Director of Human Services from Brown County.
Welcome.
And I am representing the Minnesota Association of Social Service Administrators. I appreciate your time and opportunity to speak here, Chair Pinto. First off, I really want to thank the investments in 2024 for the Social Service Information System that we call SSIS. We are grateful for the recognition of this critical issue and the impact of an archaic technology infrastructure has on our system's ability to make data-informed decisions while also managing administrative and reporting requirements, and most importantly, serving Minnesotans well. More investment is needed. One can't expect to plant half a seed and get the full harvest. The Association of Minnesota Counties and MAXA support continued investments needed to modernize SSIS and bring it into compliance with the federal standards. We also need to make sure that the existing system continues to operate while we're in this transition. But counties need seed money too. There are inequities across the state of Minnesota in terms of our technology systems. Some counties have made significant investments to provide technology solutions that SSIS is incapable of providing. One example is purchasing a document management system that can categorize, store documents, and even autofill forms. Other counties have had staffing resources to extract data and make program improvements, much like what you've heard from our friends from Hennepin County. This is just a couple of examples of how our workforce, of helping our workforce and in turn helping our consumers. However, such investments are not the same from one county to the next. And as the state moves forward in modernizing the systems, AMC and MAXA strongly support county funding to ensure our collective present and future technology investments all work together in a solid foundation. And we all need to work together in recognition of the transition between the Department of Human Services, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and Direct Care and Treatment. AMC and MAXA encourage legislators, state agency partners to be transparent in their decision-making to adopt government structures that fully realize the complexities of our system, while also allowing for collaboration with end users. Over the past 25 years, counties have invested over $20 million and have spent countless hours in work groups, task force, committees, and conversations as we work to remedy the inadequacies of this technology platform. We are invested partners and ensuring that our technology systems work in Minnesota and ask that legislatures and state agency partners recognize the values of counties being included in the decision-making process throughout the design, development, testing, and implementation. So as they say, there's a time to plant and a time to sow. Over the past 2 years, you've heard from us about testimony of how our frontline staff are spending more time entering data than they do in supporting children and families. The inefficiencies of the system alone has resulted in staff spending more time documenting and administrative redundancies than do in supporting individual families. For example, currently when a child is ready for adoption, the worker must document in 3 separate places in SSIS the same sibling information. Nobody likes to put in information in duplicate or triplicate form, and that's what we're required to do at this point. We are appreciative of the legislature in advancing policy in this area and taking the time to learn the complexities of the county-administered human services system. The system relies on ensuring our workforce is supported, ensuring access to technology that serves families and the workforce is critical to a sustainable system. This technology foundation must allow them to easily document interactions, produce reliable reporting, and one might even dare to dream that the case plan or notice to send out to families about Social Security happens automatically. Without tending to the technology in the workforce, the policy passed by legislatures will sadly fall into the category of unsupported mandates. Without advancements of investments in the same number of county staff will be doing an increased amount of administrative and documentation to meet legislative requirements. These are workers who entered this complex and difficult area with the desire to help, not to spend hours in front of a screen. Now is the time to keep planting those seeds and sowing the ground, working towards a future where the technology efficiently supports the work, make data-informed decisions, and help all involved focus on quality interactions and relationships. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I see NGT's on the agenda, but not sure if you're speaking. No, not going to be doing that. I don't know if folks have questions at all regarding this. I'll maybe just note a request that to the extent that counties do feel the need for, understand the concern about workload and everything else, I'd encourage you to bring forth proposals to the legislature, because I think the last couple of years there really have not been such proposals. So encourage that. And so, yes, Representative Hanson, we'll go to you, and then you want to go. Representative Hanson, we'll go to you first, and then we'll go to Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to piggyback on what you just said there,
Yeah.
is that, I carried the bills to get the $2 million and then pushed to get the $10 million. We are going to continue planting seeds, so I appreciate that sentiment of raising that awareness for everybody. We know that our caseworkers are doing this work, so I think you did a really good job of laying out the duplicative work that we have to do and we see our workers doing there. But I want to echo that it is critical that the people on the front line, whether they are coming through AMC or whoever, that they talk to us as well, because that's how we get things across the finish line. That's how we tell our legislator friends who maybe don't understand these things, and letting them tell their stories. It has been one of the most effective ways for us to continue to raise the awareness about this. So as much as we love lobbyists and we have friends that do this, more importantly, we do need our caseworkers to be able to have time in their days to come and talk to us about these things too. So please continue to do that. Shout out to Scott County for always sending great social workers to testify with me, and keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The SSIS system isn't just about the child protective system. It's a larger system than that. There are still counties that still have computers that have green screens on the SSIS system. And so in your work, do you have an idea, and I don't know if maybe Matt Freeman already has presented this, but is there an idea of what it would take to actually get to a system that all, a county-based system, it is what it is. Do you have any idea off the top of your head what it would?
And I think there was that estimate, but yeah, Ms. Broskopf.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I didn't.
Yeah, I think the estimate that had been given, and I'll turn you in just a second, was 80 to 100 million total, but the federal government would be a 50% match, so 40 to 50 million at the state level. I'll note the 10 million came entirely out of the child protection budget last year, and you are right that it's supported by other areas. So if other areas want to pitch in, we would be very happy to take those additional funds.
The 2 million that
the 2 million
did come out of HHS budget.
Okay, it's it's a team sport. But Ms. Roscoff, I had stepped in front of you, so if you had something to say regarding that.
Absolutely, Senator Hoffman. You speak to the larger modernization effort across the entire human services entity, that we do have these archaic green screens, that there's a lost art in terms of how to program those programs as well. And so I can only speak to what, SSIS needs, and that's been discussed by our department here as well. Counties are going to need some resources as well. But the larger effort for all of those systems, Maxis and Prism and all those things need their turn at the bat too.
Senator Hoffman.
It reminds me of the story 12 years ago. There was a certain analyst in human services who said, when you look at how laws are established, every 2 years something else changes. And imagine going into your kitchen and you need to find your can of green beans and you open up your cupboard and there's the corn. Nothing's lined up, right? It seems to be that way when statutes are added on or statutes. In this case, wouldn't it make sense, Mr. Chair, and granted, here we piecemeal, we were laughing about, well, $2 million came from the Health and Human Services Fund. Yeah, whatever, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing. But really, if there's a systems need that needs to be here, why not just do one isolation, but rather looking at, the full structured support that I know the counties have been talking about for years, and I know the department has even said that there are the green screens. I've seen the green screens, believe it or not. Heck, Delta's probably still using green screens for all I know, but sorry, there's going to be some Delta shots in here.
It's a little too soon, Senator Hoffman, I think.
Hey, I was there all weekend,
okay.
so I can, it's refreshed. I'm having
Fair enough.
post-traumatic stress on this one, David. But wouldn't it, it's worth, I think, a conversation, or like you had said, bring a bill. I mean, that's the same thing.
Yeah,
So I'm
certainly should.
grateful you're part of them. Grateful the county is in this conversation with that, so.
Yeah, thank you, yeah. So Representative Hanson, you have something you're going to?
Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you, Chair, just mention that we do the Human Services Modernization Bill that the counties brought forward last year. I think I just want to bring everyone's attention to that. But the price tag on it is hefty, and making sure that we're finding ways to fund this. This is how, I always say, I believe politics is how we care about each other. This investment is caring for our littlest Minnesotans and our most vulnerable Minnesotans and the people who are hungry and are shelterless. That's what we really need to focus on. And so while we will see a huge price tag on this kind of modernization, I'll be your biggest champion to stand there and say that this is an investment worth making. And I know that a lot of us here on this committee or on this task force and beyond see that need as well. And so bring on the heavy price tag. We should do it right. So this was carried in the Senate was by Senator Kupik and in the House by Representative
The $40 to
Vernig.
$50 million cost is one time, Senator Hoffman, per your question. Yeah, I think that's a pretty general estimate because it's such a big project. But that's the SSIS improvement. Yeah, correct, yeah. And I will note we've heard throughout both committee hearings and then also in this task force the impact on kids and families, because that's the important thing, that a lot of the reforms we want to do, including I know some of the discussions in AAFPA, are like, look, having this computer systems in place actually helps us be able to do some of the reforms we want to make, and that's true in all kinds of the pieces that we have. We should keep on moving. Don't see other hands up, and so thank you so much, Ms. Broskoff. Thanks all for the discussion on this. Bringing up now, I think someone from MAXA was going to come up, I think Mr. Lambda perhaps, about our next topic, which is age of delinquency. Let's see who's coming up about that. Okay. And so if you can please identify yourself. And before you do, maybe I'll just note for members, we'd heard earlier about changing the age of delinquency from 10 to 13 in our state, which will have the impact on the child protection system of having some kids in that age range be directed to child in need of protection or services to the child protection system. That's the connection with child protection of that having passed. So if you can please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Nicole Kern. I'm the Director of Community Corrections in Morrison County, and I'm here today on behalf of the Minnesota Association of Community Corrections Act Counties, also known as MACAC, to discuss the implementation change in delinquency age. Last year's legislation requires that effective August 2026, the age of delinquency will be 13 years old, and that that children aged 10 to 12 who previously were delinquency age will now be the responsibility of the child protection system. While MACAC generally supports this change because we do not feel that children this young belong in the criminal justice system, we do feel that the implementation of moving these youth to the child protection system should be done with a mindful process of collaboration of all stakeholders to ensure that we do not fail these youth. In the corrections world, the majority of these youth who will be impacted are some of our lowest risk kids, and they're easier to deal with. Most of them are nonviolent first or second time offenders whose parents need assistance with setting boundaries, holding their child accountable, and access to mental health services. However, we do have a few youth aged 10 to 12 that have committed gross misdemeanor or felony level offenses that require an intensive approach and often a short placement that can keep them and others safe during a stabilization period prior to their return to the community. It is our recommendation and request that a work group be created to explore governmental and community resources that need to be developed, including utilization of voluntary efforts to divert youth from the system rather than automatically placing them in it, similar to what these youth would qualify for in the juvenile system known as diversion. Parenting support programs that assist with boundary setting need to be bumped up a little bit in the communities. Additional in-home family counseling, respite homes that are equipped to assist children of this age and parents with support, case managers who are trained in understanding that these youth are at an age of emerging mental health issues while also dealing with hormonal changes. Building relationships with community groups to ensure non-delinquent age youth are not used by older youth to commit crimes because they will no longer have a criminal consequence. And also licensing issues for youth to be placed into non-secure DOC licensed facilities, such as facilities that currently accept CHIPS youth who are the age of delinquency, will not be able to do so under current licensing because they serve delinquency age youth according to the DOC license. Thank you for your time and consideration of our input. We fully offer our expertise and experience to the work group to assist with a successful transition of services, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you so much. We'll see if there are any for you at the moment. There's going to be a couple of other speakers on this topic. Not seeing any. I'm actually going to have Aaron Johnson, I think, come up next, and then we'll have Mr. Davis. I'm assuming that Emilio Lamba is not speaking, but I may be wrong about that. Maybe you are. Okay. So, and thank you so much, Ms. Kern. So, Aaron Johnson, as you settle in, if you can identify yourself and proceed with your testimony, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chair Pinto. My name is Aaron Johnson. I am an assistant Washington County attorney. I have been in Washington County for about 20 years. I primarily handle child protection cases with a smattering of delinquency cases. I am also here on behalf of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, also known as MCAA. Chair Pinto, Co-Chair Champion, thank you for the opportunity to address this task force today. I think we've heard already about the change to the age of delinquency, moving from 10 to 13. And I think what I would like to note is that just kind of the tip of the iceberg of how we are going to address this population. What we have seen is we have this age change, but there is going to be, as indicated by the previous testifier, essentially a shift of services going from what we in my office call 260B, or the delinquency world, to 260C, or the child protection CHIPS world. Those two systems are not apples to apples. They are, in fact, in some ways, apples to steak. And what this legislation has created is some questions that we believe require some further refinement, further discussion and collaboration, so that this population of youth can be best served in the way that we have hopefully been trying to do in the delinquency realm and can still be done in the social services realm. One of the first things I would like to note that Ms. Kern also highlighted is the need of what is a very small portion of this age group, but arguably the one that takes up most of the time and resources, are the subset that are violent offenders or commit things like sexual offenses. This group, while small, does require very intensive service, very intensive monitoring, and on some occasions, the use of secure custody facilities. The child protection statutes in 260C do not allow for children under the CHIPS status or label to be placed in secure custody. I say this knowing and wanting to stress that secure custody is really always not our first choice, not our second, not even our third, but we do have that small population who does require that. We do not have facilities that are equipped to handle some of these behaviors when we're looking at assaultive behavior and sexual offenses. We are already lagging behind in foster homes, in non-secure placements, and a lot of them are not equipped to deal with that level of need. We currently have processes set in place already to deal with this age group, as was also mentioned by Ms. Kern, in diversion programs. That's set up through statutes to go through the county attorney's office. It comes through a referral from law enforcement. There is really no mechanism in the child protection realm for law enforcement to make a referral to social services to do a diversion program. There's mandated reports. We know law enforcement are mandated reporters, but that relates to abuse and neglect. When we're looking at things like juvenile petty offenses, things like theft, things like fighting in school, I would argue that that's not abuse and neglect. That might not require a mandated report. So how are we getting this group of kids to social services to get the attention that they need? And we've heard this in other areas today, and I think either Mac Hack touched on it and Maxa could also potentially touch on it, but the need for resources and services. And I understand sort of the cart before the horse analogy that was raised in a different agenda item here, but we already are lacking in our existing systems with therapeutic services, family-based services, services that will come into the home, services that are culturally competent, that have the ability and the means to reach all of the different cultures and ethnicities that we have in the state of Minnesota. And the further you get out from the metro area, the greater that need, the greater that lack of services. So I would just echo the need for investment on that level as well if we very much want to be successful in this shift. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And Mr. Chair, Chair Champion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for your insightfulness. And let me say, this is one of those situations where we are trying to navigate through a very difficult piece of policy, like for an example, and even costs. So the previous folks, I was talking about the cart before the horse because, of course, there's this whole thing about implementation and what you know and what you don't know, what's there. And I always think that it's important to have that information as much as possible. Here, I think we're almost able to see that there's going to be some differences is because if those kids between the ages of 10 and 13 or 13 and under can't be considered delinquent or the age of delinquency changes and then it goes through child protection, then your cost will go up because one is the increased number of the volume that's going to come through. In child protection, any kid over the age of 10 is entitled to an attorney. The parents are entitled to an attorney. If they're not together, the parents, then the dad, mom, and everyone's entitled to an attorney, right? And so now you're going to see all these costs going up. Now, the other challenge is usually during, at least I see it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that usually when there's a child protection matter or social service issue, it's usually in the name of the parent. Mm-hmm. Like in the matter of Bobby Joe Champion, even if it's my kid.
Right.
And then there's usually a case plan, or maybe not a case plan, right? And then that usually leads to something, sometimes termination of parental rights, because most people think of the most egregious notions becoming products of TPRs, but it could also be a kid who needs medication services and so on and so forth. And if there's a belief that the parent or guardian cannot take care of that child because they have so many issues, then they're on this other track. So all that is to say, I can definitely see the cost there. And do you see a problem with us focusing on the parent as opposed to the child? Because now the delinquency component at least dealt with the behavior of the child, and there were services in order to deal with that. Now we're putting it in a different arena, for lack of a better word, and what becomes the focus. Do you see any problem with that? And if so, what is something that we should do about that? Because that becomes a little more problematic.
I think that she will from past conversations I've had with her, but Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Champion. I think, in the ideal world, if these are routed to social services, we are hopefully handling on the front end and not having to get to court. But you are correct, if it goes to court, it is a petition that is filed in the name of the parent. Any out-of-home placement that would occur would be subject to permanency timelines. In child protection, we have right now in Minnesota a year of out-of-home placement. So if a child comes in for a delinquent act, or what would be a delinquent act, any out-of-home placement under that court system would count towards that permanency timeline. I mean, I think, again, ideally, that's not our goal, is to be bringing these families into court, into that system. But that is a very real possibility. As you said, children do get attorneys. Each parent, even if they're together, best practice is that they get their own attorney, because even intact families don't always have the same opinions about things. And I do also think there is a question about, one of the goals of this was to not have these children enter the delinquency system, but instead are we going to have them enter the child protection system as a family?
Mr. Chair, and then I'll go to Senator Hoffman, but I'll let Chair Champion.
And on this point,
Control
and then
things.
what happens is if the family is put in the child protection system and the one child who may be a little more challenging, and if you're not able to meet the needs of that child, and then now they're subject to all the timelines, then guess who else gets exposed? The other children
Right,
now.
right.
The other children get exposed. So I wanted to make sure that I'm correct about that, and just making sure that we have a clear sense of what we're talking about in real time.
Move to Senator Hoffman.
And to that point, Mr. Chair, you are getting into a contextual discussion about when you see, is it family-centered, is it person-centered, is it client-centered? What it comes back to is the work that Robin McWilliams at Vanderbilt University, when they were doing the Early Intervention Services Act stuff, this goes back a few years, this dates us. That debate was happening, and they said, no, you cannot take it out of the context of the family, to your point, right? That concentric circle, the family, when you're talking about the child or you're talking about the individual, it should be the discussion of the family. When you look at the work that was done at the Orlena Puckett Institute and the work that Vanderbilt was doing, and that was Dr. Robin McWilliams, you cannot not have that conversation, right? And so I think that's worthy of that social services element. Yeah, because you just mentioned, she just validated when she said families, right? So it's the John McKnight theory, that concentric circles. You guys ever seen those? And that's exactly where you're going with that. And perhaps that's the direction that one should take it.
Thank you so much, Senator Hoffman. Looking to see if there's other questions, and not, Senator Cruin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm trying to think back when this bill came before us in committee in the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. I can't remember if anybody from your organizations testified.
Senator Cruin, if you can speak a little more into your mic, thanks.
I'm trying to think back if any members of your group testified and raised some of these issues. And at the risk of maybe saying something unpopular in this room, I will just note it was in my view, I raised some of these questions, and it was a very superficial hearing, stacked in a agenda with dozens of other bills, and this was not thoroughly vetted. I don't believe we looked deeply into what it would look like to transition these services from 260B to 260C. I don't think we thought deeply about what about those gross misdemeanor or felony level offenses. What do we do? How do we get the services? And I think, from my view, what I could glean from it is there may have been a misunderstanding about how often children at the ages of 10, 11, and 12 actually were placed in short-term secure placements, to use your terminology, and how rare that actually was. And maybe we took a sledgehammer to a problem when we should have been using a scalpel. That's my comment, but I don't know if you testified, and I would just like to note, too, that I'm acutely aware that short-term secure placements is not available within the CHIPS proceedings, and that is a problem sometimes in the CHIPS proceedings as it exists before this change, and now we're going to be creating a situation where you may have a situation where everybody around the table, from the county attorney to the judge to the parents, would think that a short-term secure placement is in the best interest of that child, and it's not going to be available even as a last resort option. And so what are we going to do in those situations? I think these are all to be determined. You can feel free to comment on anything I've just said.
Well, and maybe Senator Corrin, so full disclosure, I should have said this at the beginning. So this was actually my bill. And I did see the hearing in the Senate, and then we did have a couple hearings in the House. And it's sort of unusual that I would, advance the bill, have it become law. I firmly believe that children of this age should not be in the delinquency system. And I also recognized at the time, and continue to, that there are things that need to be figured out. That's the reason that you'll note this is not going to get effective until more than 2 years from now. And so I actually wanted to have folks who will be involved in the implementation come in and talk with us. I will say, I think there are some responses to some of the points that have been made. Hennepin County has been doing some of this work as a pilot. They've been doing a pilot on a lot of good things. We heard about AAFPA before, also piloting this. So I kind of wanted right after session just sort of highlight, hey, this is becoming law. It's more than 2 years away, but there are certainly some things that we need to figure out and have a sort of continued conversation about it. So I think there are some responses to some of the concerns raised, but I did want to orient the task force now to just say, hey, there may be some things in 2025 with some proposals relating to this, and have us be aware of that. Ms. Johnson, if you want to say something real briefly in response to Senator Corrin's question, please do, and then otherwise I want to move on. Ms.
Just
Johnson.
to answer your, yes, Senator Crude, thank you, Representative Pinto. Just to answer your question, Robert Small, who is the executive director of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, did provide testimony at one of the hearings. So it was not me, but there was somebody from my organization. And just would also like to reiterate that I think that's what we see from our end too, is that there's some refinement and tweaks that definitely need to be made. And we are absolutely open and available to being a part of those conversations, whether that's in a task force work group or just through individual legislation coming. I think that's something that we are committed to, because with this change happening, we do not want this group of kids to fall through the proverbial crack.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for your testimony. Thank you for your work and to all those testifying on this. I'm going to ask Mr. Davis to come back up one more time, and this feels like it's a little bit awkward the way this has worked, and my apologies. But I know you were going to just share a tiny bit more, maybe Ms. Sommerfeld is, about what DHS and DCYF are doing relating to this very topic. Ms. Sommerfeld.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, Jennifer Sommerfeld, Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So while the legislation did not establish a work group or necessarily assign a specific agency implementation of this legislation, we recognize that these youth will be coming into the system through CHIPS now. And so we are working on this. First, we have to figure out a few things first. Our initial challenge is understanding how many youth these are, what services they might need, what services they may or may not be receiving currently in the youth justice system. And we have determined that this really isn't a problem that lies solely with us figuring out how to implement it, but it's across multiple agencies. So we have worked with the Children's Cabinet. They will be working with DCYF and DHS and other affected agencies to develop a work group so we can work with the county attorneys and counties and tribes. Tribes also have an interest in this to work on developing some implementation plans and guidance, and also looking at what resources might be needed, because as noted, and we talked about this during session, I think as well, there aren't services to care for these youth in the youth justice system, and there is a lack of services for youth in the child protection system. And so we need to work on how we would develop those, there will be costs, and look at some of those recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Sommerfeld. The final question is relating to this topic about age of delinquency change. So we're going to have one question from Chair Champion, different topic. Not seeing any. So then Chair Champion had a question relating to AAFPA. Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Somerville, I had to leave to go to the lavatory. I'm sorry, I admit that. But, and I'm not sure if you all mentioned what work has been done on the external working group development for the African American Family Preservation Act. Because remember, there's that working group that's supposed to bring in the counties and the community groups, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, in order for them to walk alongside of the pilot so that information can be disseminated and used and clarity can be brought to some of the provisions of the act. in order to be beneficial for full implementation.
You're asking about timing, correct, Mr. Chair? I think you had asked about kind of, has that
When is the
started, and
group-
if not, when will it be?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
That's the question, like, has it started? Where are you on it? When will it be up and going?
Ms. Sommerfeld?
Mr. Chair, Senator Champion, I'm going to bring Mr. Davis back up because he is directly involved in implementation of the work group and other
Okay, good.
things.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, if you can, once you get settled in, respond to Senator Champion's question about the timing of that working group on AFPA.
So to answer your question, Senator Champion, since the end of the legislative session, the department has been reviewing the final engrossment to establish a timeline of effective dates and due dates, to develop our implementation plan and confirm the appropriations. The department has held initial meetings with Hennepin and Ramsey counties, who are the phase-in counties. We are currently working to establish the external working group required in the legislation for the broader statewide work group. We are working to establish a method of communication to keep stakeholders updated on implementation efforts. We are working to hire staff in the department for the established African American Child Wellbeing Unit. The new department commissioner, Tiki Brown, has set meetings with yourself and Representative Abaje beginning in early August that will include a discussion on the recommendations for community organization representation on the work group. We are in the process of hiring a project manager to assist us with the implementation. We are working to develop a website for implementation process communications. We are meeting with community stakeholders so that we can provide updates on progress with implementation.
And Mr. Davis, could I just ask you, I think the question related to the working group, that external working group, has that started meeting as of yet? Maybe that's one.
Not as of yet.
Okay, and do you have a sense as to when it will be starting?
I would probably say maybe September, October.
Okay, September, October. Okay, Mr. Chair, does that, anything else you want to? No? Okay, okay. Mr. Davis, thank you. I think that gives us what we need, but thank you so much.
okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Good, and then not seeing anything else, and so we really thank you, especially for coming back and forth, you and Ms. Sommerfeld. Appreciate that. And members, I'm going to ask you to dig deep for our last topic, because these folks have worked very hard. Dr. Sojourner, if you can head on up. Direct your attention, everybody, to a presentation called Financial Incentives for Adoption and Kin Guardianship, Improve Achievement for Foster Children. And I was very worried because this packet's very thick, but most of it is an appendix. So hopefully, so that means that won't get presented to us. We can just look at it on our own time. And that'll be the last topic that we have. All right. And Dr. Sojourner has presented to committees that I've chaired a number of times and really so much appreciate your work. And so if you can please identify yourself and then proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Oh, there you go. Okay.
I think it's up, right? Oh, well,
Just the title.
up and down, I think. Try up and down. You might need some assistance. Let's see. You had the first slide up. Maybe you just somehow go back to it. Okay.
Well, I'm Aaron Sojourner. I'm a labor economist at the Upjohn Institute, which is an institute founded in 1945 with the mission of improving the way the labor market works and how to make people more productive in society and the economy. And I've been working on this project with co-authors. We got financial support from Casey Family Programs. We had a lot of data support from access from DHS, also through the MinLink Center at the University of Minnesota, which allowed us to link the data on all the foster care cases to data on kids' later achievement in K-12, on MCA tests, and on school attendance rates and things like that. So we were able to follow the individual children who were into the foster care system through a bunch of state systems through these data linkages.
It looks like it is working now, so yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So we did a study of a particular part of the North Star, the 2015 North Star reform. The North Star reform changed a lot of things about the child welfare system. The piece that we're focused on was the payment equalization policy that only affected kids age 6 and up. So if you look at this graph here, you can see there's 4 bars. And what you can see is that it shows you older kids and younger kids before the reform and after the reform. And the idea was that policymakers were worried that once you get a payment when you're in foster care, but if you adopt the child or bring the child in as a kin guardian to your family, a lot of times the payments stop or they fall. And that might unintentionally create a disincentive to moving kids from foster care into permanency, either adoption or kin guardianship. And so, especially for older kids who were more likely to stay in the foster care system longer, there was a commitment made to basically equalize the payment in permanency compared to the payment in foster care. So what you can see is that before the reform for older kids, once a kid moved into permanency, they only kept on average about 21% of the monthly payment followed them into permanency. About 80% of the payment was lost. But after the reform, almost over 90% of the payment was continued on average. That equalization policy did not affect children under age 6. It was a much smaller change. So there was a big difference there at the age 6 threshold. So that's kind of almost an experiment that we could use to see the effect of payment equalization. So a lot of things were happening in the economy, a lot of things were happening in the child welfare system that affected both older kids and younger kids. We're going to kind of put those things aside, and we're just going to focus on the thing that hit these 2 groups of children differently, which was this payment equalization, the reduction in this disincentive. And what we're going to look at and give you new evidence about, and some good news to end the day here, was that we looked at how do these incentives for permanency affect children's outcomes. The state is making this commitment to continue financial commitments to the child once they're in permanency rather than cutting them off. That comes at some cost. Were there benefits in terms of the child's trajectory after that? Do those incentives work as they were intended to increase the speed and likelihood of children moving out of foster care into permanency? Did it somehow erode the quality of the match that was made? So we're going to use this policy change, and basically we're going to measure the effects of this equalization policy by looking at how did outcomes change for the older kids differently than how did it change for the younger kids who were not subject to this equalization. So that's kind of the policy experiment. And there's a lot of details. You can read the very long appendix that Chair Pinto mentioned. Happy to talk more, but I'm just going to hit the top lines here because I know time is short. So the first thing is that if you look, for each kid, we know when the foster case started, and we can go out sort of 3-4 years after that, and we can see how did they score on the MCA tests in K-12 if they were the right age, if they were like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 when they started and there were standardized tests 3 years later. What we found was a really big effect. So about a third of a standard deviation, which doesn't mean a lot, but foster care kids in foster care on average are about 0.7 standard deviations below the average kid in Minnesota in terms of these scores. So that closed about almost half of the gap in 3 years. That's a really big change. That's much bigger than a lot of other programs. So how much did it cost, this extra commitment? On average, the effect on payments, this payment stream was about $2,000 per kid. So if we were able to add up all the payments that were made in foster care, kinship assistance, adoption assistance, North Star, in the 3 years between when the case started and when the tests were administered, and on average, the effect of the policy reform was to raise the payments by about $2,000 in total. We also see a positive effect on school stability. So the kids are changing schools less. They're attending fewer schools per year. It's accelerating exits from foster care into adoption or kin guardianships, on average about 5 months of acceleration. It's not affecting reunification. So there's no effect on family reunification, which is sensible, like it shouldn't affect family reunification, but it didn't, so that's good. And we also see a reduction in out-of-school suspensions from this equalization policy. So we can look at a lot of evidence about how big an effect does $2,000 have on kids. There's a lot of evidence from other settings and other experiments, and it comes nowhere close to this big an effect. So that suggests to us that while the literal extra finances were important, there were other aspects of the situation that were also important, just like maybe in terms of creating more stability and certainty for the family and the child. And if you look, I'm a labor economist, we like dollars and cents, and so we try to put everything into dollars and cents. And if you look at, a 0.3 standard deviation positive effect on test scores, what does that mean in terms of lifetime earnings, the value of the kid's future lifetime earnings? That's the benefit, and you reckon that against the $2,000 extra cost. The benefit is something like 16 times bigger than the cost. So yeah, really, really big. And, we don't know the effect if the equalization policy were extended down to lower ages. We didn't have that in our data, but, this is evidence that it did have that effect for older kids compared to younger kids. So I can go into a lot more detail, but that's the upshot.
Thank you so much. That's really powerful. I guess I have a couple thoughts, but I want to see if other folks have questions or things that they want to say. Maybe I'll just, while waiting to see if anybody does, something that jumped out at me was your comment about the difference in opportunity gaps, or what this would significantly close, maybe close that by half, and makes me think that we talk a lot at the legislature about the achievement gap and the role of schools and the school systems, and obviously they play a significant role. And this is a reminder yet again, though, of everything that happens outside of school and how important that is. And so we want to make sure that when we are blaming schools for achievement gaps, and again, not to say there's not plenty to improve, but just to recognize that there's a lot of other things that are happening in a kid's life. And if something like this can have that big an effect, that's really, really powerful. And at $2,000 of payments, my goodness, provide support for families. Anything else anybody has? So, Senator Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just not a statistician here, but
Yeah.
can you, big picture, explain the comparison here? Are you comparing, sorry, I'll get closer. Are you comparing children above age 6 versus children below age 6, or are you comparing children above age 6 compared to pre-reform?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Dr. Sojourner.
Thank you, Chair. So it's called a difference in differences design. So what we're doing is comparing like older kids coming into the system after compared to before, and then we're making the same comparison for younger kids after versus before, and then we're comparing the difference in the differences So you're on the right track, exactly. So and the idea is that the younger kids are exposed to economic changes and general changes, but they're not subject to this payment equalization change. Whereas the older kids are subject to economic changes, policy changes. One thing different, this payment equalization. So the difference in the differences we're interpreting as evidence about the effect of the payment equalization policy, because that was the only piece of the reform that really had different bite at that age threshold.
Senator Cruin, Senator Cruin, is that, yeah, please, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And thank you, that's helpful. I actually understand that, so it's great. So I'm a lawyer, not a statistician. So on slide 3, I had a question about the 16 times on the average cost compared to the $2,000 payment. What is the $2,000 payment? Is that per what?
Yeah.
Dr. Sojourner.
Thank you. It's the same kind of comparison. So basically, for each kid, we have about over 50,000 kids in our data, year data from 2011 to 2019 who entered the foster care system. And for each one of them, we can see how much was paid either through foster stipends or adoption assistance or kinship assistance or North Star each month in the first 3 years after the case started. And so we look at how much did that payment stream change for older kids after versus before, and it went up. And then we look at how much did it change for younger kids after versus before. It went up a little bit, but it went up more. It went up $2,000 more for the older kids than for the younger kids. So we're doing basically the same kind of analysis for the test scores, and then we're doing the same kind of analysis for the payment streams. And what we're seeing is like this big positive effect on test scores and about a $2,000 positive effect on payment streams.
Senator Cruin, got that covered? Mr. Chair, Chair Champion, no? Okay. Okay, and I want to point out there's a really nice brief that's in the packet as well from the Center for Advanced Studies in Child Welfare called Adoption, Financial Incentives, and Child Achievement that has good information. Senator Hoffman, yeah.
So I remember, Representative Pinto, when you were talking about like years ago, the Scopes Perry Preschool Project, you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about childcare. The investment in childcare is anywhere between 7 and 10% great investment, right? And so,
Well, yeah, or even higher, but yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go to Rutgers, what the guy Stephen Barnhart did at Rutgers University, it showed that. But the 16 times, when you look at the investment you make in making sure that we're not paying something at the end of, I love this. I mean, this is too bad we can't book savings on it, but 16 times the average cost. I mean, that's a system saving thing. So.
Let's keep it in mind. No, thank you. And keep it in mind in the 2025 budget session about, to get this kind of payoff. Are there other questions that folks have or comments related to this? Dr. Sojourner, thank you so much for your work and for the presentation.
Thank you.
Members, we're actually not too far after 4 p.m. I'm going to see if folks have anything further, and if not, I'm going to turn to Chair Champion to provide any comments that he wants to at this time about anything, but including what he may envision coming up for the task force, et cetera. Chair Champion, turn it to you, sir.
Thank you so very much. I don't have much to report at this time. I am putting together, and I'll also run it past the co-chair, what we want to have before the body when we come together for our next task force meeting. So just make sure that you are checking those emails, and if you have any suggestions or if there's something in particular that you'd like to hear something about, please feel free to give us that information as well. The only person on the committee who's not able to do that would be John Hoffman, so I don't want any suggestions from him. Anyone else, you're more than welcome to send suggestions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Champion. Members, part of the reason that this task force was sort of reestablished, definitely relatively recently, was to have more attention on this area that had really not received the attention that it deserved. It feels like this afternoon was a good example of that. Take a look at what we passed and then go on from there. And I too encourage, as Chair Champion did, folks to be in touch with us as we go forward, and we'll be in touch. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.